used to very much be a right-wing position that George Bush Jr. was infamous for allowing in the 2000s. In the past, I believe Republicans were very pro-amnesty of illegals because big businesses loved hiring them as a soft form of slave labor because they had to accept labor organize for some sort of workers' rights, they could just be deported. But now it seems like cheap labor is a leftist position.
Hey Viv, these mass deportations are going to help out real Americans, right?
If watching families being ripped apart does not appeal to your humanity, let me try and appeal to you financially, because these mass ICE deportations are bad for the economy. So while undocumented immigrants actually make up a really small portion of the overall workforce, they are overrepresented in jobs that you do not want. Things that have little benefits, long hours, backbreaking work with no pay. For example, about 42% of the agricultural workforce.
Without the slaves, who will pick the cotton? But in reality, illegals make it very difficult for small businesses who want to provide good pay and good working conditions to compete against big businesses or other small businesses who are essentially cheating. Also, those same illegals are stealing away resources from people who actually pay into the system, and that's causing those people to switch parties.
This was the precise moment I no longer was a Democrat.
Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants.
Right there. They're not undocumented immigrants, they're illegal aliens. Calling them immigrants implies that they are legally here, and they are not legally here. Stop trying to confuse people on purpose by changing the language. Anyway, let's continue. Everyone raised their hands saying they were in favor of giving free health care to us. Wait, was one of those people Bernie Sanders? Let's get a higher quality image from YouTube, and yep, it is. What a wild political shift.
That was the precise moment that I knew I was leaving the Democratic Party, because I was a two-time bone cancer survivor. I voted for Obama-Biden based on Obamacare. And when it was implemented in 2010, I went from an insurance plan that was $185 a month with a $1,000 deductible, and I was left with the cheapest option being $1,200 a month, $6,000 deductible. I went 10 years without insurance because I could no longer afford it.
Hey, what's up, man?
Democrat candidate up on that debate stage raised their hand and said they would give it away.
I started a new map. Just because
medical bills are so expensive? Well, there's a lot of reasons for that.
Hang on, let me turn this down a little.
Emergency rooms are legally required to take care of people who enter them, whether they have the money or not, and illegals love using that as a form of health care, followed by not paying for their bill. So the hospitals just
God damn it.
prices for everyone else to
I started a new map. I went out today. I did a couple things. My day got a little better. I still didn't get my cat tower, but my day got a little better. So I stopped off and I got the fixin' to make Manhattans, and I drank one Manhattan, then I made another one, and I started streaming. So I'm sitting here sipping some sweetened rye whiskey and playing 7 Days to Die. So I'm doing all right. I haven't drank in a while, so they are hitting me a little hard. I don't know if you're familiar with what a Manhattan is, but a Manhattan is 2 ounces of rye whiskey, 1 ounce of sweet vermouth, a dash of bitters, a dash of grenadine, and a cherry garnish. I use 2 cherries. But it's basically sweetened rye whiskey. I don't know how you are about whiskey, what you know about whiskey.
One of the most expensive places to live in America.
You're in uptown New York City, right next to all these brownstones that cost millions of dollars, and this 10-story high shelter is housing thousands of migrants for completely free. The migrants are getting free rent, you get the free food, they get a free time here in New York City, while you guys have to pay for your rent. Does that make you upset?
Yeah, honestly, that's not fair for me. That shit is not fair at all. We all live here. We all gotta work. We all gotta get our shit. So they should do the same shit. You feel me?
And that's not even the worst of it. You see, a lot of these places that are housing
Fireball is technically bourbon. I know they say it's whiskey. Bourbon is basically American whiskey. And the difference between bourbon and whiskey is bourbon is made with corn. Basically, bourbon is aged moonshine. Traditional whiskey is either made with wheat, barley, or rye. Fireball, I like American honey. I actually have a bottle of American honey in my freezer. That's bourbon with it's flavored with honey, where Fireball is bourbon flavored with cinnamon. I I don't mind Fireball. My problem is Fireball is flavored with artificial cinnamon. One time I had a ginger brandy that was flavored with natural cinnamon. That was really good. I also had a horseradish vodka that was really good. I had it was just the regular horseradish vodka, but I was like, dude, this would make a really good Bloody Mary.
Morning. If you try to say it's a good morning, there's the goddamn door. If you want a job from me, let's get one thing straight. You're not working with me. Look quick, buy quicker, piss off fastest. Cha-ching! Thanks, buddy.
Like, what is your go-to drink? Like, if you're going to go to the bar, what do you usually drink? Okay. What's your old lady drink? The same thing? Like, you kind of like the sweet drinks. Yeah, your old lady drinks the same thing. All right. So like you're Captain and Coke. You're just not like regular, like Bacardi and Coke. You like Captain and Coke. I worked in a bar when I was younger. Like when I go to the bar, I usually drink beer. I used to drink Budweiser. Now that I've moved to Pennsylvania, I drink Yangling. But when I actually like splurge on beer for the house, I get it's a beer called 312 by Goose Island Brewing Company in Chicago. It's a wheat ale. It has like a creamy floral taste to it. It if you ever tasted it, it would complement a steak really well. But yeah, it's a creamy, very kind of floral, slightly citrus taste to it. I drink beer. Well, I've drank beer since I was like 15 years old. Like I'm from the Midwest. Like I drink I drink beer like a German, even though I'm not German. But I'd say in the last maybe 5, 6 years I've gotten into whiskeys. And I wouldn't call myself a whiskey snob, but there's certain things I look for in my whiskey. Uh, I like Scotch whiskey. Irish whiskey is hit and miss with me. Uh, Bourbon is the candy of whiskey. But I also like checking out mixed drinks. Like my ex-wife used to like Cosmos. Well, she drank uh it was vanilla vodka and diet. I'm trying to remember what it was called. It was called something funny. Oh, a skinny white bitch. That's what it was called. Uh vanilla vodka and Coke it's called a white bitch, and a vanilla vodka and diet Coke's called a skinny white bitch. I worked in a bar. Oh my god, I got to tell you this. This is fucking disgusting. I worked in a bar and we used to make a drink. We didn't make a drink, but there was a drink that was made that was called it was called the LA Freeway. And you know those mixing pads they mix drinks on at bars? Basically, they would take that, pick it up, and dump the contents of it into a shot glass, and they would give it away for free. And it was called an LA Freeway.
Good. Didn't we agree your first job was going to be free? Damn, this is all I can spare. I don't like you. I'd say it's been an honor to work with you, but it would be a lie.
Oh, I reckon there's a snack over here. Yeah, it is gross, ain't it? Dude, every night they would pour like 5 of these shots, and I've almost seen fist fights go over them. Dude, I agree with you 100%. It's like that's one of the big reasons why I don't drink a lot. Uh, I don't smoke a lot. Like I don't. It's there's so many times like, and that's not even like my worst addiction story. Like, yeah, in order to drink that, you're addicted to alcohol, dude. And I wasn't a bartender. I was a barback. So it was my job to clean those mats. So I know those mats weren't very fucking clean. Yeah, the bar I worked at, it wasn't. It's kind of hard to describe it. It was a sports bar. It wasn't a dive. It was a sports bar. It was a pretty nice sports bar. I mean, it had over 50 televisions, dartboards, pool tables, stage for live bands. It was a nice bar, but holy shit, the shit that jumped off there. Dude, dude, there was a night I watched a guy get his teeth kicked out. And that was before he left the bar. They like dragged him into the parking lot and fucking worked him over even more. Like the guy left the bar missing teeth and still got his ass, and he probably got the worst beating in the parking lot. I first of all, I can't say for sure. The guy that owned it, well, the guy that owned it was Irish, so he wasn't in the outfit, but I'm pretty sure he was connected to the outfit or affiliated with the outfit because the shit I saw jump off in the bar and the amount of times that the police showed up to the bar and kind of left unincidentally led me to believe that there was definitely sketchy shit going on in the bar. Yeah, like when I lived in Chicago, I was in the painters union, the painters and allied trade. That was There was mob connection with that because it was a union. I was on a picket line. We were picketing a car dealership that was using scab work. I picketed it for 2 days. On the second day, uh, Lincoln Continental pulled up. 3 guys got out. They were wearing tracksuits. They came out. They gave us fucking pizzas. They gave us sodas and waters. They sat there. They bullshitted with us. They told us they were with the union and everything. And then before they left, they told us that there wouldn't be a picket the next day, that we didn't have to show up. And we're okay. And after the day, we left. And the next day, I was unemployed at the time in the union. That's why I was picketing. But I was sitting at home and I was watching the morning news, and the fucking job trailers to that job, the construction company, the job trailers had burnt down that night. So literally, the fucking mob told us, don't bother showing up tomorrow because there'll be nothing to picket. But yeah, like in Chicago, just whenever you see news coming out of Chicago, the mob runs everything. Just the whole fucking city is corrupt. Like it's ridiculous. It's like cartoon levels of fucking corruption. Yeah, if you want to know Chicago corruption, look up Operation Silver Shovel. That was a huge mob bust that happened. Oh, it was either the late 90s or the early 2000s. Like a mayor of a city was busted for having mob connections. All right, hang on. I gotta pee right quick. I will be back in a minute. Oh, I want to check to see if my tower's here yet. Hey, buddy. Oh, I'm back. Ugh. You know what? I need to.
The rise of Islam is real here in the United States. It's the fastest growing religion across America, and it's nearly doubled in size over the past 2 decades. Muslims aren't just outpacing the nation in birth rates, they're also outconverting Christians. Nearly a quarter of all U.S. Muslims are converts, and most of them used to be Christians. While Christian churches are losing members, mosques are gaining members, and they're keeping them. And today, I'm here in Minnesota, home to one of the largest Muslim populations in all of America, to witness the rise firsthand. I'll be speaking with Muslims, Christian Americans, all
This doesn't
Americans,
concern
entering
me
the mosque, asking the questions you guys want answered, from 9/11 to Sharia
because of
law,
the simple
everything
fact
in
that
between. There are no questions off the table for this video.
right now
Let's see what
Islam is a
you see.
fashion
And to see
in the
the rise
United
of Islam
States.
firsthand, I see the Riverside in Minneapolis to see how much the Islam community has grown inside of this community inside of America. And why do you think so many people are converting to Islam here? It's the #1 growing religion here in the United States.
It's Americans aren't religious. Most Americans that say that they're Christian, they're not practicing Christians.
Islam is the #1 growing religion here in
I mean, there are practicing Christians, a lot of them in the United States. But the simple fact is they're not practicing Christians.
Are you a Muslim woman or no?
I'm not. My parents was Muslim.
How come you left Islam?
Because they control me. They control my yes, because they press. No, they don't want to be close. But me, I don't want to close.
Motherfucker! How is this even possible?
United States, they have freedom. They can wear whatever they wanted, but Islamic, they press females.
So if you're a woman in Afghanistan and you don't wear the hijab,
they kill you. They don't want you if you don't wear it.
Oh, motherfucker!
Yeah.
really?
I'm afraid. Yeah, I'm afraid. That's why I wear this.
And why do you think Islam is the largest growing religion here in the United States right now?
Because of our Quran, our Quran, our book never changes. One language, one religion. There's Islam in all over the world.
Do you think Islam will eventually overtake Christianity here in the United States?
Worldwide, not just United States. We have people converting every day.
And what leads a Christian man to convert to Islam?
When they read the Quran and they find the truth, and they read it in English, and they see how peaceful Islam is.
Yeah, if your religion, one of their
You shake a man's hand?
religious garments is a suicide vest,
Other men's hand?
No,
you're not a peaceful religion.
it's normal.
Is it true that Muslims also practice polygamy?
Yes,
Do you accept another wife into your marriage?
in our religion it says.
What's it like being a Muslim here in the United States?
I'm not speaking English, only one Somali language.
What does it mean to you to be a part of Islam?
I don't know, I'm not speaking English.
How are you? Do any of you speak English? English? No. Can women speak on camera? No. I kept going because I wanted to speak with some more of the elders here to see if they could share their story about coming here from Somalia, like how they've seen the rise firsthand, how they speak English. How are you? Can I ask any of you guys some questions? No? Speak English? No? Do any of you speak English? I then found someone who I could speak with and ask the controversial questions. And what do you say about what happened on 9/11, or those when people say Allah Akbar or things like that?
I thought it's tragedy.
Would you say that's a misrepresentation of the true Islam, or do you think
It definitely is misrepresentation. True Islam doesn't believe in violence.
after a few interviews, somebody came up to us angry because we were asking about the rise of Islam inside this community? My name is Dick Shirley.
What are you doing?
My name is Dick Shirley. I'm a YouTuber. We're doing a video on the rise of Islam here in the United States.
The rise of Islam.
Yeah, it's the #1 converting
The
religion.
rise of Islam. Make it make sense for me.
This guy wouldn't show his face on camera, and this conversation kept going for a few minutes, and he demanded that we deleted the footage of the interviews that we took here on the street. I said no, and he said, you better go, and we're going to make sure you leave. From Minneapolis, we went to a town named St. Cloud that's seen a dramatic shift in their demographic and as well as religion in the area. Inside of this town of St. Cloud, this is one of the many Islamic centers here. This is a mosque here, but something that's super interesting about this mosque right here, it actually used to be a Lutheran church. You can see right here on the backdrop of this wall right here, this used to be a Lutheran church. So that just shows how much of the population has shifted from Christian to Muslim. So right here is a St. Cloud University, and you look at that mosque right there, and then if you go another block over, there's another mosque. And then what's interesting is right next to this mosque right here, there's a Presbyterian church. So you have two churches right next to each other, one worshiping Allah, and the other worshiping God. Do you see more people here converting to Islam or to Christianity?
Just anecdotally, I'd say that Islam's on the rise here. I do know Christianity, including our denomination here in St. Cloud, is not growing. It's actually declining.
Do you see any conflicts with Islam and Christianity?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you think Islam and Christianity can coincide here inside of this town?
I think when they get the majority, like there's more people that practice Islam, I think that it will take a different form. I think up until that point we can coexist, but history's shown that when the Muslim community gets majority in areas, they tend to behave differently. So I challenge you to go and look at the growth of the Somali refugee population, because they're the ones that put a demand on the desire for Islam. Was Minnesota took a lot of Somali refugees, and many of them were placed here.
See, this is...
After speaking with the lady from the Presbyterian Church, I headed over to one of the mosques to try and speak with some of the people inside.
There's a... Look, I support nationalism. I'm a patriot.
No.
I support nationalism to a point.
How would you describe the rise of Islam here inside of Minnesota, inside of St. Cloud?
I think...
We have talked to. It's coming.
And
I think both sides are seriously misrepresenting.
And what year did you come here?
Come here at 1990.
What's happening here?
8 years.
8 years? And where are you from?
Somalia, Mogadishu.
And why are a lot of Somalians choosing to come here to Minnesota?
There's
different reasons, family.
There are Muslims that integrate very well. They adapt to societies very well. And then there's the Muslims that are coming in that want you to live your life by, I don't want to say Sharia law, but by Muslim law. Because Sharia law there's many interpretations of Sharia law. Just like there's many interpretations of the Bible. You can't, this is one of the problems with theology, is there are extremists in all religions. There's even extremists in Judaism. There's extremists in Christianity. There's probably Buddhism and Hinduism. There's probably extremists in those too. But you have to at least acknowledge and contain the extremism.
All right, so I'm leaving the building right now. tried my best to speak to the people inside. A lot of them didn't really speak English. However, now we're going to go to other mosques because now it is the time for prayer. So we're going to head over to the other one, see if we can talk to some more people as well.
And we're about to go into prayer right now. You can come in, take your shoes off. I can grab you a chair to sit in.
Okay.
You can record us.
How many people are you seeing, for instance, like how many white American boys like me are you seeing convert to Islam?
So I'm a close friend of one of them. I wish he was here today so he could talk to you. Originally he's Irish. His family had lived in Minnesota for the past, I would say 70 years. His great-grandparents came early on during the early 1900s, and he recently accepted Islam, I would say 2 years ago. And when I was talking to him, he was reading the Quranic.
So what's the difference between you and somebody who's been radicalized?
Well, the difference between you and someone who's radicalized is this. Most people who've been radicalized have been radicalized for a political gain, not for a theological gain. Allah says in the Quran, لا ينهاكم الله عن الذين لم يقاتلوكم في الدين ولم يخرجوكم من دياركم أن تبروهم وتقسطوا إليهم, which means Allah does not prohibit you from those that don't fight you, don't expel you from your homes, to be kind to them. Allah is not prohibiting you from doing that. In fact, Allah loves those that are kind to them.
So why does the word radicalized come up, for instance, like the Death to America, that sort of stuff? Where does that come from? Because that's a lot of stuff that maybe I see on the news, or maybe I see because I'm living here in the United States, and that's kind of the news you get, is like the Islam's taking over, and they're going to want to make sure that Sharia law is brought to pass and that everybody converts to Islam.
Well, there's this misconception of Sharia law. Everybody sees Sharia law as this law that puts everybody that's not a Muslim under this radical military rule that you either comply with what the government says, or you're punished. No, Sharia law is really simple. A big part of Sharia law is this. The Prophet, may peace be and blessings be upon him, said, "It is not befitting for you to go to sleep with your belly full with food while your neighbor is hungry." Sharia law is not a political rule. What's specifically funny to me is the right-wing media and the radical Islamists, as I put it, both view the Quran in the same way. They both view the Quran as some war-fighting material that the Islamists use to, prove their point, and the radical right use to prove their point.
Over Islam, or for instance, they talk about how the Somalians are taking over Sharia law. Is that true or not true with what Sharia law says?
Well, no part of Sharia law says going to a land.
Ooh, my favorite book.
Going out, when the Prophet would send missionaries to Christian nations, he didn't tell them to, hey, go there, yell at them, yada yada yada, do this. And he said, be like them, dress like them, talk to them, help them, introduce them to Islam gradually. I'm not just gonna go in there and say, hey, this is Islam, take it. If you don't, I'm gonna do something to you. No, it's a gradual thing.
Hacker, please, just come outside. How you doing? Is Martha here? She's probably at her boyfriend's house.
30 days ago, 53-year-old David Callahan killed his girlfriend, Martha, and buried her body in his own backyard. David thinks he's gotten away with his horrific crime. Martha was mentally ill, had few friends, and no one was supposed to come looking for her. Martha's daughter, Kim, was the only person concerned about her mother's whereabouts.
If I come up missing or dead, it's no accident. And he has told her before, I'm gonna get your ass, and nobody's ever gonna find you.
What's your concern?
That he killed her.
Kim thinks David had something to do with her mother's disappearance, but with no proof of a crime, officers don't believe her.
You've been surprised at all if she's lying dead in there? No. Or shoved in a tub? Nothing surprises me. Yeah, that's like a horror movie.
However, in the weeks that follow, Kim will will do everything in her power to find Martha, force police to act, and lead them to one of the most gruesome discoveries of their lives.
Seems like a body part.
In the early hours of a Monday morning, police in Akron receive a call from a woman asking for a restraining order against her boyfriend. The caller is 53-year-old Martha Robin Freytag. She's already known to officers for her history of schizophrenia and the frequent domestic disputes involving her boyfriend, David Callahan. Their relationship was unstable, constantly breaking up and getting back together, leaving officers unsure whether each new call was a real emergency or just another one of their fights. But this time would be different, because when officers arrive at the couple's house, they have no idea that a murder will take place just minutes from now, and this will be the last time Martha is ever seen alive.
No, I don't like that. No, I really don't like it.
Hi.
Hi. What's going on?
Did you call us? Yes, I did. Okay.
What's going on?
Oh, I'm gonna watch videos.
Set your location. I think sodomy is 10 years, right?
So you want to restate something you already said, and they're already
Just because
investigating it?
the shit I'm listening to is more interesting than the game.
I got a restraining order and denied. And wait for her to get some mental help because you're supposed to go down the first pass. First of all, it wasn't supposed to be explored at all.
As Martha speaks, her words are scattered, and she makes little sense to officers. Her behavior just seems erratic, like another episode of confusion or paranoia. But in reality, Martha is masking genuine fear that officers don't pick up on. Because what they don't know is that her boyfriend, David, is standing inside the house, waiting for the moment officers drive off, so he can make sure this is the last time she ever calls them.
You come out because you guys are mad at me, right? I got a restraining order against him, and then there's, I don't know. What are you doing over there?
I'm talking to you.
And why are you over there like that?
Because I want to be.
Okay. Well, I'll talk to the guy downtown and talk to him.
Okay.
As strange as it looks, officers don't think much of the interaction. They walk away, dismissing Martha as unstable, unaware they've just left her alone with the very man who's about to kill her. In the hours after police left, David snapped. Inside, he was furious that Martha called the police on him again. He grabbed a wooden axe handle and struck her in a fit of rage. When she collapsed, he wrapped a rope around her neck.
Beat her with an axe handle.
She stopped moving. Once Martha was dead, David sealed her body inside a plastic bag and waited for nightfall. Then, under the cover of darkness, he carried her outside, burned her body, and buried it in a shallow pit behind the house. To David, it was over. A woman with schizophrenia, few friends, and a history of false
You'll never be able to
no one would ever come looking for her.
make a fire hot enough to burn a body.
Is that Martha's daughter Kim will soon be on to him, slowly solving her own mother's brutal murder.
The old school way of burning bodies, the ancient way on funeral pyres, those fires burned all night. So it wasn't a matter of getting the fire hot enough, it was they burned the fire long enough. That's the two things you need to destroy anything.
It quickly seems that their concerns won't be taken seriously at all.
Neither is a cousin of ours that she calls all the time, her brother that she calls all the time. Nobody's heard from her.
She lives here?
Yeah, well,
Have you been in?
No. I came earlier, knocked and banged on the door, and she was having a lot of problems with her boyfriend.
Yeah.
At some point, there was some kind of protection order, and I don't know, against him.
Jared Leto. I hate that guy. I've never hated an actor before, except for that guy. And it's because he ruined the Joker. And he ruined the Joker by making the Joker his, where everyone else that plays the Joker plays an interpretation of the Joker. Everybody that plays the Joker is, this is how I think the Joker acts. Where Jared Leto is, I am the Joker. The Joker will act the way I act. He's, oh God, he's somebody that needs to be just beaten with a sack of doorknobs.
Junior Soprano and Richie are one of those pairings where, on paper, the alliance looks inevitable. Junior is the old guard with a title, pride, and a chip on his shoulder. Richie is a returning soldier who feels owed the world, hates being managed, and wants a shortcut back to the top. Put them in the same orbit, and the conversation almost has to drift toward the one idea that fixes both of their problems at once. Tony has to go, and Richie does.
The thing is Richie and Junior are in the same position where they both think that they should be in power.
Float it. Not as a formal sit down, not with a clean plan, but as a pressure test. He is basically feeling around the edges to see if Junior will bless it, tolerate it, or shut it down. That moment matters because it shows you exactly who Junior is at that point in the story. And it also shows you what Richie actually is, which is not a loyal partner looking to restore order, but a destabilizing force trying to borrow legitimacy. The easiest way to understand why Junior does not choose Richie is to remember that Junior already tried the straight line solution once. Junior already went down the road of removing Tony, and it nearly got him killed. And it definitely got him boxed in. Season 1 ends with Junior learning the harshest rule in that life. If you miss your shot, you do not get to pretend it never happened. Tony survives, the people around Tony survive, and now everybody knows what Junior is capable of and what Junior is willing to do when he feels disrespected. Even if nobody says it out loud, Junior is tagged. The label is simple. He is a threat who failed. That is a dangerous category to live in, because you do not look strong enough to win, but you look reckless enough to try. So when Richie comes to him with the same kind of energy, the idea of whacking Tony, it is not some fresh new opportunity for Junior. It is a reminder of the last time Junior reached for the crown and got his hand slapped off it. At the same time, Junior is also not innocent. He does consider it, or at least he allows the thought to breathe in the room. That is the part that makes the scene so good. Junior does not react like a shocked uncle. He reacts like a man who has run the math before. Because Junior has reasons, real reasons. Tony humiliates him, undercuts him, treats him like a figurehead, and then expects gratitude when he throws him a little respect in public. Junior also has a deep insecurity that Tony is the future and Junior is the museum piece. And in their world, being treated like the past is not just insulting, it is lethal. It means people stop fearing you, and once they stop fearing you, they stop listening, and once they stop listening, you become a problem that needs solving. But Junior is trapped between pride and survival. After his legal trouble and house arrest, his life is smaller. His access is limited. His crew is thinner. His ability to move pieces quietly is worse than ever. And Tony, for all the disrespect, is also the person who makes Junior's life possible in practical ways. Tony keeps the machine running. Tony keeps money flowing. Tony keeps certain people from taking advantage of Junior while he is vulnerable. Junior hates needing that, but he does. So any serious move against Tony is not just a power play. It is Junior jumping off a cliff and hoping the ground does not meet him. Now put Richie into that picture. Richie comes out of prison with an old map in his head. He thinks the world works the way it did when he went in. He thinks fear is enough. He thinks his name is enough. He thinks if he pushes hard, people will fall back into line. That is why he's so offended when Tony does not treat him like a returning prince. Richie sees Tony as a kid sitting in a chair that belongs to older men. He does not just dislike Tony, he rejects the entire order Tony represents. Richie feels that order as humiliation, and he turns that humiliation into a mission. Tony has to be removed because Tony's existence is proof that the world moved on without
This
Richie's
is not an.
permission.
This
Junior
isn't.
can see that, even if Junior also enjoys watching Tony get challenged. When Richie floats the idea, Junior is not only hearing a proposal, Junior is studying the person making it, and Richie fails the test in a way that is almost subtle at first. Richie does not come with broad support. He comes with personal anger. He does not come with a stable coalition of captains agreeing the boss is bad for business. He comes as one guy who cannot accept being told no. That matters because Junior is old enough to know the difference between a coup and a tantrum. A coup has structure. A coup has buy-in. A coup has a plan for the day after. A tantrum has a gun, an ego, and a fantasy that everybody will clap once the shooting stops. Junior also understands that Richie is trying to use him. Richie wants Junior's name, Junior's history, Junior's crown, because it makes Richie's move look legitimate. If Richie takes out Tony on his own, it is just Richie being Richie, a hothead making noise, and the blowback will be enormous. But if Richie can attach Junior to it, then Richie can say it was sanctioned. It was business. It was the boss restoring order. Junior, if he is honest, knows exactly how that ends. Richie does the dirty work. Richie becomes the strong man. Junior becomes the old man in the corner who gets thanked and then ignored. Or worse, Junior becomes the fall guy if things go sideways. Because Junior is already on the radar, already limited, already vulnerable. Richie is not offering Junior power. Richie is offering Junior the privilege of being blamed. That is the big reason Junior does not choose Richie. Junior is prideful, but he is not stupid. He can feel when someone is trying to climb him like a ladder. Richie cannot help himself. He talks like a man who is already beyond compromise. He treats respect as something he takes, not something he earns. He does not show patience. He does not show flexibility. Those traits are scary, but they are also unstable. Junior knows the difference between a scary man you can point and a scary man who might turn on you. Richie is the second kind. Junior's caution also comes from the memory of how Tony handled him after season 1. Tony does not kill Junior. Tony chooses a softer kind of domination. He lets Junior live, but he corrals him. He allows Junior to keep a title publicly, while Tony runs the day-to-day reality. That was Tony being strategic. Tony could have ended Junior, but ending him would have created more war, more heat, more instability. Tony chooses control over revenge. For Junior, that is humiliating, but it is also a message. Tony is not just a punk kid. Tony is capable of mercy when it serves him, and capable of violence when it is required. That makes Tony harder to outmaneuver than Junior expected. So when Richie shows up offering to do what Junior already failed to do, Junior cannot avoid thinking about what happens if they fail again. A second attempt is not just another try. It is a final one. Tony would respond like a man who learned his lesson. Tony would not allow Junior to remain alive as a symbol
No,
if
see,
Junior threatens
because
him twice. Junior knows that.
here,
He might
let
not
me
say
look.
it out loud, but he knows it in his bones. So the question is not, do I want Tony gone? The question is, am I willing to die for it? And am I willing to die for it on Richie's timetable? Junior's legal situation also makes Richie's pitch worse.
The Chicago outfit.
You're watching the Everything Network. Capone was born in New York City in 1899 to a...
Well, here's the thing about the Chicago outfit. The Chicago outfit is run like a business. The New York families are run like families. Uh, the New York families have more of a Rome type of hierarchy. It's more of the Caesar, but it still has the Senate. So it's not exactly an empire. You still have a council. It's not entirely left in the hands of one man. Where the outfit is run like a business, it's run by a CEO. It's run by one man. So New York is run more like a Senate, where Chicago is run more like an empire.
Italian immigrants. He joined the Five Points gang as a teenager and became a bouncer in organized crime premises such as brothels. In his early 20s, Capone moved to Chicago and became a bodyguard and trusted factotum for Johnny Torrio, head of a criminal syndicate that illegally supplied alcohol, the forerunner of the outfit. And
before Al Capone, Johnny Torrio ran the South Side Gang. Bugs Moran ran the North Side Gang. Chicago was split into two sides. That's basically what it was. Is instead of 5 families like New York, they had 2 families in Chicago. Al Capone is the one that conquered the other one and made one empire out of it.
Was politically protected through the Unione Siciliana. A conflict with the North Side Gang was instrumental in Capone's rise and fall. Torrio went into retirement after North Side gunmen almost killed him, handing control to Capone. He expanded the bootlegging business through increasingly violent means. But his mutually profitable relationships with Mayor William Hale Thompson and the Chicago Police Department meant he seemed safe from law enforcement. Capone apparently reveled in attention, such as the cheers from spectators when he appeared at baseball games. He made donations to various charities and was viewed by many as a modern-day Robin Hood. However, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, in which 7 gang rivals were murdered in broad daylight, damaged the public image of Chicago and Capone, leading influential citizens to demand government action and newspapers to dub Capone public enemy number 1. Federal authorities became intent on jailing Capone and charged him with 22 counts of tax evasion. He was convicted of 5 counts in 1931. During a highly publicized case, the judge admitted as evidence Capone's admissions of his income and unpaid taxes, made during prior and ultimately abortive negotiations to pay the government taxes he owed. He was convicted and sentenced to 11 years in federal prison. After conviction, he replaced his defense team with experts in tax law, and his grounds for appeal were strengthened by a Supreme Court ruling, but his appeal ultimately failed. He showed signs of neurosyphilis early in his sentence and became increasingly debilitated before being released after almost 8 years of incarceration. In 1947, he died of cardiac arrest after a stroke. Alphonse Gabriel Capone was born in Brooklyn, a borough of New York City, on January 17, 1899.
Hang on, you guys listen to this. I'm getting up. I gotta pee. Hang on. I'm gonna pause it. The whole thing. I gotta get up. I'm gonna pee and make another drink. I will be back. I'm gonna do it. I wish I had the new stuff, but I'm gonna have to do it old school.
father was a barber and his mother was a seamstress, both born in Angri, a small commune outside of Naples in the province of Salerno. Capone's family had immigrated to the United States in 1893 by ship, first going through Fiume, modern-day Rijeka, Croatia, a port city in what was then Austria-Hungary. The family settled at 95 Navy Street, in the Navy Yard section of Brooklyn. When Al was aged 11, he and his family moved to 38 Garfield Place in Park Slope, Brooklyn. Capone's parents had 8 other children: James Vincenzo Capone, who later changed his name to Richard Hart and became a prohibition agent in Homer, Nebraska; Raffaele James Capone, also known as Ralph Capone or Bottles, who took charge of his brother's beverage industry; Salvatore Frank Capone; Ermina Capone, who died at the age of 1; Ermino John Capone; Albert Capone; Matthew Capone, and Mafalda Capone. Ralph and Frank worked with Al in his criminal empire. Frank did so until his death on April 1st, 1924. Ralph ran Capone's bottling companies, both legal and illegal, early on, and was also the front man for the Chicago outfit until he was imprisoned for tax evasion in 1932. Al Capone showed promise as a student, but had trouble with the rules at his strict parochial Catholic school. His schooling ended at the age of 14, after he was expelled for hitting a female teacher in the face. He worked at odd jobs around Brooklyn, including a candy store and a bowling alley. From 1916 to 1918, he played semi-professional baseball. Following this, Capone was influenced by gangster Johnny Torrio, whom he came to regard as a mentor. Capone married May Josephine Coughlin at age 19 on December 30th, 1918. She was Irish Catholic and earlier that month had given birth to their son, Albert Francis Sonny Capone. Albert lost most of his hearing in his left ear as a child. Capone was under the age of 21, and his parents had to consent in writing to the marriage. By all accounts, the two had a happy marriage. In 1919, Capone left New York City for Chicago at the invitation of Torrio, who was imported by crime boss James Big Jim Colosimo as an enforcer. Capone began in Chicago as a bouncer in a brothel, where it is thought the most likely way for him to have contracted syphilis. Al was aware of being infected at an early stage, and timely use of Salvarsan probably could have cured the infection, but he apparently never sought treatment. In 1923, Capone purchased a small house at 7244 South Prairie Avenue in the Park Manor neighborhood in Chicago's South Side for a little over $5,000. According to the Chicago Daily Tribune, hijacker Joe Howard was killed on May 7th, 1923, after he tried to interfere with the Capone-Torrio bootlegging business. In the early years of the decade, Capone's name began appearing in newspaper sports pages where he was described as a boxing promoter. Torrio took over Colosimo's criminal empire after the latter's murder on May 11, 1920, in which Capone was suspected of being involved. Torrio headed an essentially Italian organized crime group that was the biggest in Chicago, with Capone as his right-hand man. Torrio was wary of being drawn into gang wars and tried to negotiate agreements over territory between rival crime groups. The smaller North Side gang, led by Dean O'Banion, came under pressure from the Jenner brothers, who were allied with Torrio. O'Banion found that Torrio was unhelpful with the Jenners' encroachment, despite his pretensions to be a settler of disputes. In a fateful step, Torrio arranged the murder of O'Banion at his flower shop on November 10, 1924. This placed Jaime Weiss at the head of the gang, backed by Vincent Drucci and Bugs Moran. Weiss had been a close friend of O'Banion, and the North Siders made it a priority to get revenge on his killers. During Prohibition, Capone was involved with Canadian bootleggers who helped him smuggle liquor into the US. When Capone was asked if he knew Rocco Perry, billed as Canada's King of the Bootleggers, he replied, "Why, I don't even know which street Canada is on." Other sources, however, claim that Capone had certainly visited Canada, where he maintained some hideaways, but the Royal Canadian Mounted Police states that there is no evidence that he ever set foot on Canadian soil. An ambush in January 1925 left Capone shaken but unhurt. 12 days later, Torrio was returning from a shopping trip when he was shot several times. After recovering, he effectively resigned and handed control to Capone, aged 26, who became the new boss of an organization that took in illegal breweries and a transportation network that reached to Canada with political and law enforcement protection. In turn, he was able to use more violence to increase revenue. Any establishment that refused to purchase liquor from Capone often got blown up, and as many as 100 people were killed in such bombings during the 1920s. Rivals saw Capone as responsible for the proliferation of brothels in the city. Capone often enlisted the help of local members of the black community into his operations. Jazz musicians Milt Hinton and Lionel Hampton had uncles who worked for Capone on Chicago's South Side. Capone also sent 2 bodyguards to accompany jazz pianist Earl Hines on a road trip. Capone indulged in custom suits, cigars, gourmet food and drink, and female companionship. He was particularly known for his flamboyant and costly jewelry. His favorite responses
Wait, what?
So I just watched the footage of my assault, and I'm gonna say it's definitely violent. Thank you so much, my best friend Summer, for literally going to the liquor store where it happened in front of and getting the surveillance footage of the assault. Like, I'm shocked I even got this. I have sent it to NYU security, and they're forwarding it to the police, and it actually is the guy that has been assaulting many girls around campus right now.
So the girl that is...
Wait. Before even my home slice, Juan Fitzgerald fucking lays his smackdown, I just gotta say, how the fuck is this actually happening? Goddamn, on video, an assault is happening, and that's it. It goes no further than that. I don't. How the fuck can somebody get assaulted and then nothing happens? This civilization has progressed further than that. How can somebody get assaulted and nothing happens? That's like medieval shit. We should be reading about that in history books. But we're not. So we're going to listen to see what my boy Juan Fitzgerald has to say about it.
in that clip that I opened this video with is called Amelia Lewis. She happens to be a 20-year-old New York University student. Obviously, for those of you not listening via podcast, she also happens to be a very attractive young 20-year-old NYU student. And in this viral video, she ended up recounting an event that occurred when she was walking in and around the NYU campus, and a man who, by the way, apparently has attacked multiple women in and around this area, ended up targeting her, striking her from behind, throwing her to the ground, and just wandered off like it was no big deal. But Amelia did not decide to leave it there. She decided to obtain the footage of this assault, add it in with her own commentary, explain how when she talked about this and exposed this among her group of friends and with the campus, that this guy was a known attacker. However, nobody was doing anything about it until this clip went viral. Nobody was actually making...
All right. I know he's he's building up to something, and everybody's looking forward to what he's got to say. What's the point he's got to say? I just got to say before he goes any further, dude, either grow the mustache or don't, man. You can't. No, like you can't have a 5 day shadow on just a mustache and a neck beard, dude. You gotta either commit or don't. You know what I mean? It's yeah. You can't leave us hanging like this, dude. This doesn't look good. It's not a good look for you, man. I'm telling you right now, it's not a good look.
Arrest on this repeat offender, despite multiple reports of him doing the same exact thing to other girls in and around this area, because, you know, criminals are considered innocent Beba Angel Aladdins, at least until the embarrassment factor is hiked up to such a degree when an attractive 20-year-old refuses to remain silent. So this is what we're going to talk about today, because Amelia did something absolutely amazing in this particular case, because not only did she help remove a violent repeat offender from the streets, but she exposed that but for the fact that she happened to be an attractive girl that told her story, and that story ended up going viral, nothing would have been done against this individual up until the point where I guess killing somebody, and then all of a sudden people would say, wow, nobody could have seen this coming. Let's talk about mental health. Maybe we could address it at this moment in time. And honestly, when you really think about it, the real victim in this particular case is the man who violently attacked women over and over again with no consequences, not the people who were actually victimized. So this is what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
He is a tall white male.
I'm not telling you guys what to do, but I am giving him the money.
With long brunette hair and a long brunette beard, and is wearing gray sweatpants and a big black puffer jacket and a blue towel around his neck. So if you see him, please call 911 and report him to the police, because they are looking for him, because he has done this to so many girls, and this is like disgusting. So I'm just gonna say, like, trigger warning, because like it's honestly a really hard watch. Like, just I mean for me, just because it like happened to me, but like just like watch if you're interested, but like it's definitely not cute.
So look, as you could see and hear for yourself, the girl sounds like a young 20-year-old, a young NYU student. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you, although for those of you who are going to put in the comments of this particular video that you need to think about who you're voting for and who did this girl vote for, and did she vote blue no matter who, therefore she deserves to be attacked on the streets, she actually addresses that question a little bit later on in this video. By the way, two very positive results, but as you could see, she ends up getting this footage herself. It's not like the police did it. It's not like NYU did it. She ends up forwarding that information to NYU, who is supposed to forward it to the police. But again, there was no action on this. There was no news stories or anything of the sort, despite the fact that there was an individual that was easily identifiable. Again, this guy was obviously a homeless crazed person that hangs around this particular area, attacking multiple women. And again, there was no attention to it until Amelia spoke up. Until she highlighted the problem, this violent repeat offender wasn't even being arrested. And by the way, we're going to cut to a news report where the police made an arrest right away because the police knew who this guy was. Everybody knew who this guy was. He hangs around this area constantly. And again, he was allowed to operate with impunity time and time again, striking multiple women at one of the most prestigious campuses in the entire city of New York. And by the way, in the entire country. But yeah, people thought, no big deal. We don't want to talk about it. That innocent Beba Angel homeless person, he happened to be experiencing homelessness. He was houseless, as the left likes to call it. So honestly, can you really blame him for attacking random women just for the fun of it? And by the way, he has a lengthy history of violently doing this in the past. Is that really his fault? Isn't it society's fault? Isn't it the girl's fault for being so privileged in and around such despair?
So this is right before it all happened. So I circled where I'm walking. I just crossed the street and I'm walking down the right side of Broadway. And then you can see that he literally followed me across the street. And that's him right there. And he literally targets me and approaches me and does this. You can tell literally everyone around is literally in shock. These girls like don't know what to do. It's so terrible. And then they thankfully helped me up and asked if I was okay. And then you can see the man was asking if I was okay, and then later on he helped me call the police.
Now look, I had to cut the video right there, obviously, because YouTube's terms of service will flag my video, but the whole thing will be linked as well as Amelia's X account where she posted this video in the description of the video under where it says sources. It will also be labeled for all you dumb idiots who complain that you can't find it. But yeah, it looks like this guy ran up behind her, specifically targeted her, and I'm not sure if he ended up smacking her on the ass and then throwing her to the ground or punching her in the lower back. It's not exactly 100% clear from what I can see on this video.
And like as I'm walking like with my headphones on listening to music, I feel like something like slap me so hard, like literally on my ass, like so hard. And I was like, oh my god, ow, that hurts so bad. And I was like, oh, I thought it was like one of my friends. So I was like gonna turn around and be like, ow, like that hurts so bad, why did you do that? But like when I turned around, I just saw this like old white guy, and like right when I turned around, he like grabbed my fucking hair like this and like yanked me and like
But again, no was taken on this particular prior to Amelia going out on her own and getting the footage. And by the way, as somebody who actually got my car stolen and had video footage of that from surveillance cameras that Kai might have passed by, this is something that typically they don't turn over to you. Even if you give exact time that you're looking for, you do not receive this information from the local businesses. But again, this might be the difference of me being a man in my 30s who's reasonably attractive, but not exactly a supermodel, versus an attractive 20-year-old who, again, ended up getting so much attention on her particular case, and just makes me feel bad for all the not as assaulted by this guy that got completely ignored up until this point.
I just really want to emphasize how not okay this is. I am a student at NYU. I should not be scared to be walking the street to go to my 9:30 a.m. class. These people are disgusting, and they should not be able to be walking around the street freely, targeting girls and doing this, because I heard that this guy did this a month ago. That is not okay. We need to get these people. That's not okay. I'm honestly still in shock, but I'm more enraged that things like this are able to happen in this city, and we really need to do something about it because this is unacceptable. This just shows that you really need to reflect on who you're voting for and supporting right now, because New York needs help and we're just not getting the help we need, and this is crazy.
So look, everything this girl said is obvious and true, and I do like the fact that she kind of punctuated this video by saying that you really need to reflect on who you're voting for right now, because obviously this is unacceptable. You shouldn't be scared to walk the streets of a major city at 9:30 in the morning, again, broad daylight, when there's a lot of people on the streets, as you saw right there, but this has become the norm, again, due to the fact that people continue to vote the wrong people. And of course,
a little
the
drunk.
wrong people are District Attorney Alvin Bragg,
So we're gonna do this.
Random girls on the street to feed their starving family, and as if District Attorney Alvin Bragg covering Manhattan and letting criminals out time and time again wasn't bad enough, New York is an and this is a guy who's over 50 times on X, video. Maybe some nonprofits in order to protect the innocent Beba Angel criminals. But in addition to that, the way that he sells it is by recommending that you kill the police officer in your mind and then kill that police officer over and over again, which again is a hilarious laugh line to this individual.
You got to kill the cop in our head.
Yeah, over and over again.
Yeah, people ask me this. Well, if we're not going to have police, what is the new police going to look like? And I'm like, no, it's not some new form of police. The policing is about violence work, and I want to get the violence out of it, whatever we call it. And that doesn't mean turning social workers into violence workers. And it doesn't mean trying to pretend that cops can be social workers. And it also doesn't mean everything has to be under the control of the state.
Right.
That we can do co-counseling and we can do podcasting and we can try to do that kind of person-to-person organizing of our lives and our living spaces and our work.
Let's see, I don't know where.
Have more trust on each other.
So while this
Ow,
girl
God
is
damn it.
speaking up and she is identifying the problems with who you vote for and the consequences of voting, her demographic of unmarried women, young unmarried women, are the key group that are actually backing the policies that guarantee that this guy will not only be let
Fuck, I'm not used to using the controller. Sorry.
as he attacks multiple women, because in reality, he's the real victim of society, and it's absolutely embarrassing. And by the way, this is not the first time that we saw the viral video end up repeat offenders being released on the streets time and time again. If you guys will recall, we actually did a video on this channel of people talking on TikTok about getting sucker punched randomly on the street, and then the TikTok algorithm actually grouped these videos together and started feeding them to people, and then people started realizing that a large portion of these women were talking about the same exact suspect, but then in addition to that, there were other suspects that were also sucker punching random girls in New York City that were unaddressed. But again, like I told you, this guy actually was arrested, so let us get into a little bit of criminal history from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, and the soon-to-be Mondani's administration are likely to give him accommodation going forward.
He was later caught yesterday, actually, and he was identified by police as Rizzo, who is homeless. He was arrested yesterday after police responded to a 911 call. They found him sleeping inside a nearby apartment building near Washington Square Park. Rizzo was charged with assault, sexual abuse, and physical abuse, and his history of assaults on women. He was released from state prison in September after serving 2 years on a persistent sexual abuse. Rizzo has 16 prior arrests. Court documents revealed that he groped a 33-year-old woman on Green Street, also and then asked, "Oh, you..."
Alright, hang on.
Rizzo also has a prior murder charge from 1997. The victim, meanwhile, who identifies herself as Amelia Lewis, is speaking out this morning on X, saying she is relieved that there has been an arrest.
So as you just heard right there, Rizzo has a lengthy criminal history. Included in that lengthy criminal history are multiple similar instances to what we saw right here. And again, this doesn't even include the other reports and the other people who have reached out to today's victim, our most recent and notable victim, Amelia, and told her that that same exact person did the same thing to them.
There you go.
While they were
That's
walking in and around the same area. So this was just a guy that they dumped onto the streets, said no big deal, nothing to worry about. And by the way, if you guys are curious, not included in this local news report is how he was actually caught. Because guess what? He wasn't caught because the 911 call at the time that this occurred, that definitely was done by Amelia and the people that were around her. He was caught burglarizing an apartment, in the act of breaking into an apartment in a building that was nearby this area, and he has subsequently been charged with 4 burglaries in that same building. So then, after the video went viral, they realized that this was the guy, so he was also arraigned on the charges related to assaulting Amelia. So this is a person that, again, had been assaulting multiple people. You have a report from a month prior where there was no arrest as far as we could tell in relation to that thing, and you have multiple women coming forward saying that yes, he's grabbing at me, he's groping me, he's slapping me on my backside. Again, very perverted actions. But in addition to that, he's also throwing in a random grab bag of other crimes that, guess what, nobody had any interest in addressing, because oh my god, innocent Baba Angel Aladdin, why can't we give him multiple chances? He only has committed crimes at least 16 times according to my knowledge, and of course all the other additional crimes that he had yet to be arrested for. And again, nobody should be surprised by this, and nobody should be shocked by this, because this is the express intent to give criminals, despite their lengthy history, a same-day automatic release time and time again, to release them from prison early, on honor society, and then to have some district attorneys like Albert Braggett pass up each and every opportunity in order to prosecute these perpetrators. This is what they wanted. This is what
Ah, god damn it.
It's going to be absolutely deadly for the residents of the city of New York. And make no mistake about it, that is not hyperbole, because this is what they want, this is what they bargained for, and this is what they got. So again, hats off to Amelia for actually making sure that this guy was treated appropriately. And of course, I leave it all to you guys out there in the audience. What do you think about this particular case? What do you think about this guy, again, supposedly victimizing multiple students at NYU and nothing being done, even after he has a lengthy history and he's been in and around this area until the video went viral? Again, all your thoughts down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like the video, show by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the badness of New York City's criminal justice system. Until next time.
In order to play games really isn't that far-fetched. I actually knew a guy in college who stopped going to his classes because he couldn't stop playing. It's like, oh my god, he's a level 9 player. This is the person we're looking for. Then she introduces him to Daniel.
Meet Robbie. He's level 9.
Hey, you gonna play with him? God damn it, he's in recovery. Can't you see that? He just told you he got kicked out of the last school he went to because of this game, and now you're trying to get him to play it again? Are you trying to ruin his life? But they managed to convince him to play one game with them, which, like I said, is always how it starts. And here we go. The game begins. Robbie says that his character is Pardue, a holy man. He's like a mage. He has all
Ancient warfare.
So he dies there, right? He survives somehow, he's fine, he just gets up, it's cool. But, like, he gets thrown by a rhino, like, shouldn't he be dead?
I actually...
That off. My name is Will Knijendijk, I'm a historian of ancient warfare at Lincoln College, University of Oxford.
Yeah, this guy...
I'm back again to look
like,
at
actually...
movies and TV and judging how real they are. It's actually a really interesting...
Like, this guy, he doesn't just understand tactics, he understands why the tactics work. He's a deep thinker. You have idiots, you have thinkers, and you have deep thinkers. This guy's a deep thinker. Like, if somebody was like, tell me somebody that's a genius. This guy here.
So he dies there, right?
No, this is... Hang on. Let me get a sip here. All right, now, hang on. I want to. The guy that's going to be talking in this. The whole reason I'm making this video here is because of the Metatron. I like the Metatron. The Metatron is one of my favorite YouTubers for two reasons. One, dude's base is fucked. He knows his fucking history. He knows the nuance. He knows real history. He knows fictional history, and he appreciates the nuance between the two. Now, I'm making this video in honor of him because as far as somebody that knows their fucking shit, it's this guy here. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his name. I'll let his pronounce his own name because I will just slaughter it. But I this is the origin of my first video.
So he dies there, right?
This dude's awesome.
It's cool, but like he gets thrown by a rhino.
Now, he's not necessarily entertaining, but this dude is interesting as fuck. Now, I'm not going to say this is the best conversation I ever been in because, man, I had so much fun in this conversation. This is more of a conversation where, holy shit, I learned so much. Dude, this guy actually taught me that I don't know as much as I think I know. This is how smart this guy is. This is what I would classify as true genius.
Oh, like, shouldn't he be dead? I don't think you shake that off. My name is Roel Konijendijk. I'm a historian of ancient warfare at Lincoln College.
Roll Kaneljanek. That is definitely a very Scandinavian name. Oh.
University of Oxford. I specialize in classical Greek warfare. I'm back again to look at more battle scenes.
Greek warfare. So he specializes in Greek warfare.
In movies and TV and judging how real they are. It's actually a really interesting.
Which, now keep in mind, Greek warfare is where warfare actually became a science. So even though he's going to be classifying like medieval Roman, like he's basically a Sun Tzu. He understands the art of war. He understands what they're doing, what you need to do. It's the art of war.
Like it's got some really accurate features of how to approach a fortified position. Like the attacking force is really quite spread out. They've all got their shields in front of them. They're trying to use screens to maintain in cover while they're advancing. So they're trying not to make themselves into too much of a target, which is really good. So the command loose. I mean, I've talked about this.
So basically, when you're fortifying a position, you want to be able. You're up high, and you want to. You're not going to have a castle in a forest because you're going to want to be able to see the high position. You're going to want to be able to utilize that. You're going to want to be able to slow down advancement.
Before movies and TV shows just love doing this over and over. They want their archers to be musketmen. They want them to follow a fixed sequence and fire in volleys. But archers didn't historically do this. There is no evidence that archers would shoot in volleys. It's just something they made up for the movie because it looks good to have them all do it at the same time.
No, they didn't fire in volleys. But there was a situation where they would say, fire. Your archers wouldn't fire until commanded. But once they were commanded, a good archer could fire off, I'd say 8 to 10 arrows per minute. Maybe more. I don't know. I'm kind of just shooting off the hip on that. But archers, they wouldn't wait. There wasn't a ready aim fire. It wasn't a firing squad. Once archers were ordered to fire, archers would fling fucking arrows as fast as they could.
Time and do it at the word of command. You know, some of these bows, they might have a draw weight of 60 pounds or more. A longbow has a draw weight of 120 pounds. If you're waiting for the command, you have to just hold it there and wait for the guy to tell you to loose. Your arm's going to go numb, you're going to give that up, and after a volley or two, you're going to be exhausted. So the defenders here are using the most basic tactic, of course, that you can use, which is to try and shoot the people who are operating the engines. If you can get rid of those, then the engines themselves are just wood. The obvious response to that was to try and protect the ram itself with some kind of roof or screen, which is something that has happened since ancient times. I think it's supposed to be the kind of ram that you might use either to batter against the walls, like you can roll it back and forth and smash it into something, or to pry apart the stone. Throughout history, you try to use musical instruments or flags or fire to kind of signal to other people to make sure that they play their part in the battle. Having something really loud like a trumpet that you can hear over the noise of the battle and you can hear it at a long distance is a really basic way to do that. The one thing that I'm slightly questioning in this scene is that the signal seems to be just a simple single trumpet blast, so it's really simple.
Yeah, buglers in the military were very important. Trumpeters, they were given anything. Just standard bearers and trumpeters aren't given the significance of their positions in the military that they get. They're always kind of portrayed as insignificant, a role given to a child. It's a simple fucking role, but the role of a bugler, a standard bearer, is very important in medieval battle.
It's really straightforward. That could be mistaken for a lot of things. That could be a signal to attack for the main force. It could be a signal to retreat. And if this is the signal they use to summon the dragon, it implies they have absolutely no other signals. The Roman army units would have had like much more complex signals. They had a whole set of them that they were able to use in battle to indicate different maneuvers. So, for instance, the Roman armies, you'd see these trumpet players with each unit, and they would be able to give orders specifically. If you read tactical manuals from the Hellenistic and Roman period, they think these authors still think the most reliable way to convey an order is to just, use your. Aegon and the other sort of leaders are actually getting directly involved in the fighting, and they become this kind of sort of symbol for their side, right, riding these dragons. And that is fundamentally really historical. There's a particular leadership style which is leading by example, which is very common throughout history as a way for these kings to demonstrate their worth as leaders. People follow them because they're willing to take the same risk as the troops. Alexander the Great, for instance, was really renowned for this, like leading from the front, being the first into the enemy. But there's also the other consideration, which already, like, it forms the other opposite pole of that kind of problem of leadership. They often die. So it's something that a lot of leaders consider to be unwise, because you end up, losing a lot of generals or even, monarchs or royal figures in battle. You want to avoid that. Well, you want to make sure you.
Well, here's the thing. Most monarchies are taken over by somebody who is of military prowess. You have a tactician, somebody who's good on the battlefield. He is usually succeeded by somebody who is political, not necessarily has a prowess on the battlefield. That is where you're losing. That is the shift of power. You have military power, you have political power. That is where you're trying to balance. Uh, I come into like American football. You have teams like the Chicago Bears or the Philadelphia Eagles, where they're either an offensive team or a defensive team, but what they try to do is balance the two. It's hard to balance the two. It's easy to be an offensive team or to be a defensive team. It's hard to balance the two of them.
keep them out of harm's way. I would give it a 6. I have a personal grudge against the arrow commands. Like at this point, I have to get them to stop it at some point, so they have to lose points for that. And also, where's my ditch? I need one. That's bad.
He's a big fan of ditches, like me. I'm not just ditches, but parapets. On the far side of your ditch, you want an obstacle. So yeah, he does a lot of ditches because ditches are simple. But if you add a little, instead of digging 2 ditches, dig 1 ditch and obstacles.
But otherwise, like there is a lot of stuff here that's actually really good.
I would totally love to play Warcraft with this guy. That would be awesome.
The Orc army manages to block the river, bring the water level down, and that allows them to approach the city. That's both based on historical examples and something that...
Yeah, I would love to do Age of Empires with this guy. Actually, I would need a better game because he talks about digging ditches. I'm a big fan of ditches. If you watch me play 7 Days to Die, I fucking tear up. Dude, just the holes. Just fucking bottlenecks. It's not even ditches, bottlenecks. I will go one step beyond him and go with bottlenecks. He likes ditches. I like bottlenecks. Combine the two, fucking unstoppable fucking force.
Would realistically happen as a way to overcome a city's defenses. One of the great examples of that, it's a story, we're not really certain if it's historical, but Cyrus the Great took the city of Babylon that way. By diverting the Euphrates through a couple of ditches that he had dug around the city, which allowed his army to essentially infiltrate the city through the dry riverbed. This is why they call him Cyrus the Great, because he knows the use of a good ditch. Obviously what they're doing here, when they're shooting these catapult bolts hundreds of meters up into the sky to bring down this massive rockfall, I think that's more a narrative shortcut than a real tactic. It takes obviously a long time to kind of...
Yeah, definitely, if you're going to use a trebuchet, your specific penetration. The problem with the trebuchet is your enemy is going to know exactly where you're going to penetrate their line.
Divert an entire river. So the only times that you'd be able to do that is if your enemy is already besieged and bottled up. What is going on with those walls? They're so basic. I mean, like, there's no cover for the archers, right? They just have a basic parapet. They don't have any battlements. They don't have any cover. They don't even have like a roof over it or anything. I mean, if you have, thousands of years to engineer your defenses, you can put a roof on it. So what you really want on a wall like this, partial barriers that go up to the full height of a person standing on the wall so that they can have cover or they can choose to be exposed in order to shoot arrows.
And, hang on. You see these little veins in between there, so it's not, they can actually shoot down. You're going to want to defend against the wall. This is why he's a big fan of ditches. Ditches keep you from getting to the wall quicker.
Standing on the wall so that they can have cover.
See, this is the problem with... I love this guy, but I hate him too. He loves ditches, which is not a bad thing. But ditches aren't the best thing ever. You're gonna... ditches slow the advancement down. You're gonna need a meat grinder. He offers nothing as far as meat grinding. He's all ditches, no grinding.
Or they can choose to be exposed in order to shoot arrows. When you realize as well that this wall doesn't have any kind of ditch or other earthwork in front of it, it's really relying on the river to keep the enemies at a distance. If they can approach, then even the defenders are going to be very vulnerable here.
I would love this guy to build my defenses. I would not make him a general in my army. He would be a behind-the-lines engineer. he would not be a general in an army.
Horses actually can do some fighting. Like, they can be trained to be an aggressive weapon or aggressive animal on the battlefield. In ancient times, this is very rare and very much worth remarking upon. We have like one story of a guy during the Ionian Revolt that Herodotus describes, a Persian general whose horse was also known to fight, so he would kick and bite. But in medieval times, I mean, when they bred these specific, like these purpose-bred war horses, they apparently were taught to be very aggressive, and they were taught to fight on behalf of their rider. So it becomes more normal over time to actually get these horses to be quite dangerous on their own, essentially.
Well, the thing is, horses are like dogs. You could train an attack horse. You could literally train a horse to run into combat without a rider. It just benefits you to have a rider on that. This is a thing in military: is people grossly underestimate the intelligence of animals. Fucking Hannibal used elephants. Fucking cavalry, camels, horseback. Horses are literally bred for their ability to charge into battle. I mean, duh. Animals are a benefit in combat. Animals understand combat better than humans do.
Catapults were sometimes used to try and launch either diseased animals or corpses of humans into a besieged city to try and both create panic but also spread disease. And
well, here's the thing. The catapult, hang on,
is to be quite dangerous on their own, essentially.
This is a mongrel. This is not a siege engine. They wouldn't use this to siege a castle. This was used against infantry. This was a compact archery unit. If you had a mongrel on the battlefield, you're loading it up with small rocks, diseased animals, or anything. You're just, it's grape shot. This is the shotgun of siege weapons.
Catapults were sometimes used to try and launch either diseased animals or corpses of humans into a besieged city to try and both create panic but also spread disease. And so you could use that to kind of, worsen the lot of the besieged.
Yes, biological and chemical warfare is not a new concept. None of chemical warfare is pretty much has been the same throughout history up until the atomic age. Then biological warfare changed into chemical. It combined with chemical warfare and became physical warfare.
So this is a fictional weapon that they call the Ravager. I mean, it's very common for attackers to, instead of trying to get on top of the wall with ladders and towers, to just...
Wait, hang on. I want to...
kind of, worsen the lot of the besieged. So this is a fictional weapon that they...
All right. So it's a combination between a crossbow and a battering ram.
Called the Ravager. I mean, it's very common for attackers to, instead of trying to get on top of the wall with ladders and towers, to just attack the fabric of the wall itself. So even in like ancient times, you have these beautiful Assyrian reliefs of siege scenes in which they're just going at the wall with shovels and pickaxes. Instead of picking into the wall, they decide to try and pull stones out.
A level battlefield is ideal. The whole concept of a wall, is because a level battlefield is the most fair. A level battlefield is the most fair. Once you build a wall, you have an advantage. This is common sense. This is just tactics 101.
Out with this kind of
It's why this guy loves ditches so much. You could either build a wall or dig a ditch. If you could do both, you're kicking ass.
Version force. I think that's weird. I don't think that's real. But at the same time, I mean, that's fundamentally something that does have a resemblance to Siege Hook, which is this kind of weapon that essentially a bar with a reinforced metal tip that you use in order to pry apart the stones of a wall. So, I mean, a lot of these walls essentially are just stacks of stones, right? Early walls in particular don't even have mortar. They are not stuck together. So if you can loosen the stones or crack.
Yeah, what he is saying is at the foundation of a wall, they're usually dry stacked. The Great Wall of China is actually two dry stack walls with pounded earth between the two. So, yeah, what he's saying is true. If you could get in between rocks and start fucking making weak spots.
Them or bring them out, then gradually you'll form a hole. And especially, ancient walls, a lot of ancient walls are just mud brick. So if you smash into them with force, they just pulverize. There's a lot of fantasy technology here. On the other hand, in terms of its basic idea of a siege scene through a dry riverbed, I think that's really.
He's gonna have to give it. I'm gonna say at least a 6 or a 7, even though it's fictional. It's still plausible.
The interesting option. I would give it a 7.
Yeah. There you go. All right, what do we got? We got a military scene here. Oh. Navy is kick ass. Naval attacking land from sea. You're at I would say in a combat situation, that is the biggest disadvantage. Is attacking land from sea. So I didn't see Gladiator 2, so I can already say what I'm looking at. Just from what I'm looking at, this is fucking bullshit.
Like they're actually based on ancient Roman ship designs very clearly. I mean, they're a little bit short and stubby, so they may have to be like Liburnians, which would make sense for the Imperial period. They seem to have combined the Liburnian, which is quite a light ship, with the kind of towers and siege engines that you get mounted onto earlier, much bigger warships like Quinqueremes, like these big fives that they used to use during the Punic Wars. But it's a really cool idea. They really did their homework on what these ships are supposed to look like.
But these are naval ships. They're not siege ships. They're going to fail in this battle. These ships are made for ramming into other ships and turning a naval battle into a land battle. I don't think this is not the right situation for that kind of ship.
It's just a really weird feature that they have their masts and sails still on. The decks are cleared for battle. They do not have.
Yeah, that is definitely weird that they do. He pointed that out. I didn't notice it. Kudos on him.
Their masts on them. Every ship in a naval battle in the ancient world moves on rowing power. There are no sailing warships. It doesn't happen. This is just like extra weight that destabilizes and slows down the ship.
I claim this city for the glory of Rome.
Historically, it doesn't make sense. Numidia had been subjected centuries earlier, but it's very interesting to see a city built on the sea. Like the defenses go right up to the water. And you actually see in this scene they have a double wall, so they have an outer curtain which is right on the surf, And then they have these passages leading to an inner curtain as well. So there's a layered defense system going on, which is really, historically quite common for bigger cities, and it's really effective because, of course, it means if the enemy overcomes the first line, there's still a second line you can fight for, and you're pushing them into this narrow, confined space.
Well, hang on. I would assume that the two would be defendedly differently. I mean, the first wall you would be defending against an amphibious landing. The second wall you reduce it to land combat. Hang on.
Quite common for bigger cities, and it's really effective because, of course, it means if the enemy overcomes the first line, there's still a second line you can fight for.
Now, hang on.
Because, of course,
from what they're showing here, that's what they're doing exactly what I explained. You have a defense against an amphibious attack, and then you have this little area here where you're turning it into a land war. And they even have bottlenecks. So right here, this ship is smashing through. This is where the attack would be. So you have this area and this area where you're bottlenecking the enemy. So
it means if the enemy overcomes the first line, there's still a second line you can fight for, and you're pushing them into this narrow, confined space where they're going to be overlooked by your archers, overlooked by your warriors. You love to see it. And also, obviously, building your wall up to the shore, you can use the sea as an additional defense. It's the mother of all ditches. And then the catapults start throwing fireballs. And I'm like,
why are you throwing fireballs into the ocean? Before he even says it, why are you throwing fireballs into the ocean? First of all, why didn't you do that before they even started attacking the city? If you're going to throw fireballs at ships, at something floating in the ocean, start doing it before they're fucking attacking your city walls, you fucking idiot.
Ridley, we talked about this. Catapults are always throwing fireballs in these movies. They historically didn't. They would never do that. Why would you do that? You're going to set your own ships on fire. This is a terrible idea. You'd throw basic rocks or shoot bolts at the defenders to keep their heads down. That's all they're good for, really. Okay, stop. Oh, no. Was that a trebuchet? Yeah, that's a trebuchet. I mean, again, like, maybe he had those left over from Kingdom of Heaven or something, or from one of his other movies, but, like...
I would not shoot a trebuchet at a ship. Like, trebuchets are meant to hit one spot over and over again. You can't shoot at a ship with a... This is retarded. This is retarded. I believe Metatron will even say, this is retarded.
This is 1,000 years out of place. It's an invention of the medieval period. The Romans did not know counterweight trebuchets.
And you can't hit a fucking ship with a trebuchet!
Stop it. The Greeks invented torsion artillery, which is a very big...
Alright, hang on. I gotta fucking pause for a second, because this is so stupid it made me have to pee. Oh my god. All right, I'm back.
Basic form of bolt shooter. They later developed stone shooters. The Romans elaborated on this. They developed these onagers, which are these armed catapults. They think no one would notice or that it wouldn't necessarily draw any attention. So a lot of the equipment here is basically just a mishmash of different Mediterranean, ancient Mediterranean arms and armor. And then for some reason, the hero, your Paul Mescal's character, he's just wearing the cloth little weird little leather thing. They should have put him in one of the armors that at least have a historical reference to it. Like some of that mail in the background is really great. I just put him in that. Like that's fun. So he dies there, right? He survives somehow. He's fine. He just gets up. It's cool. But
wait, hang on.
they think no
I
one would
want to
notice
look
or
more
that
at
it
this
wouldn't
battle
necessarily
here.
draw any attention. So a lot of the equipment here is basic.
So he's wearing Hollywood Roman armor.
Just a mishmash of different Mediterranean, ancient Mediterranean arms and armor.
There was a Roman armor had this like rib type system onto it. It was very collapsible. Whatever this guy's wearing, yeah, this is fantasy armor. This is armor made by somebody that knows nothing about Rome.
It's basically just a mishmash of different Mediterranean, ancient Mediterranean arms and armor. And then for some reason, the hero, your Paul Mescal's character, he's just.
This is fantasy. Actually, honestly, to tell you the truth, if this was made with a tightly wound wool, it would not be a bad armor. It's definitely not leather. It's some sort of, he's going to say linen. It could be wool. If it's wool,
The cloth little weird little leather
yeah.
thing. They should have put him in one of the armors that at least have a historical reference to it, like some of that.
During World War One, the Allies against the Germans, they developed what is called a trench knife. It has a hand cover on it, but it's actually a three-sided blade. It's more like an ice pick. And it's called a trench knife. And the reason it's called a trench knife is because it used to penetrate what is the Germans called a trench coat, which was a thick leather coat, which was hard to penetrate with a regular knife. So they had these actual. So
In the background is really great.
He's gonna kind of shit on natural fiber armor, but there were natural fiber armors that were fucking quality. Actually, oh shit. Actually, the Chinese had a paper armor. They made armor out of paper and tree sap that was fucking a very good armor. So, yeah, there you go. Metatron, talk shit about that.
I just put him in that. Like that's fun. So he dies there, right? He survives somehow. He's fine. He just gets up. It's cool. But like he gets thrown by a rhino. I don't think you shake that off. Wild animal.
Actually, most ancient battles, you were fucking put out of battle by broken bone or internal injury. Yeah, you would. Most medieval battles, you did not die quickly. It was not a quick death.
Animals were often a feature of gladiatorial combat. Like they would let wild animals into the arena and have the gladiators enact hunts, essentially, just try to hunt them and kill them. The exoticism is part of the spectacle, so if you could get weirder animals, animals that have been less often seen in Rome, that would be even better. There is evidence of rhinos making an appearance in the Flavian amphitheater, but we don't really know if they were ever made to fight humans. I mean, most of the time they would probably be put on display or made to fight other animals.
The Colosseum.
Gladiatorial naval combat called naumachia is a real thing. Most likely this would have happened in separate venues that were purpose-built to allow them to move the water in and out quickly, and where they'd have more space to kind of do this reenactment. I think it's really interesting they actually put that on the screen.
Ancient naval battles were way more exciting than modern naval battles. Like, ancient naval battles were goddamn fucking insane. Like, to be a sailor in the ancient world was more insane than being fucking infantry in the ancient world.
There's absolutely no evidence that the Romans would ever bring sharks into play in these naval gladiatorial fights. This is not something that you can easily just sort of transport into the Flavian amphitheater. That's just not. So the thumbs up, thumbs down thing, it's like, it's a big cliche for movies. We don't actually know the gestures that were used. So this is something that's become an icon of movies about ancient Rome, but it has very little to do with the actual evidence. I would
The most common one is there was the thumbs up and then a thumb to the neck. If the royal, the Caesar held his thumb to his neck, that's actually where we get the drawing your hand across your neck. That's where you're supposedly supposed to get that. That's not proven anywhere, but that's one of the many things.
probably give it a 5. There are some things that you really love to see this on the screen, like the naumachia, the naval assault of a city, like great stuff.
I would have actually probably put it more of a 6 because the theatrics, not as much as the military accuracy, but the theatrics of it, I would have put it at a 6. So he puts it as a 5 as a military. That's where I would put it. But as far as what it was, theatrics, I would put it more as a 6.
But the way that he did it ends up being really kind of sloppy and messy, and with mistakes that didn't need to be made.
They attack before they can establish their war camp and supply their soldiers.
So I have many opinions, all of them bad. So they're supposed to have run from their camp into battle by running a mile across this plain. Now, many people question this for obvious reasons, and many people have questioned it for centuries. We don't really believe that people could run that far in full armor in the summer heat, and I think that's what they're kind of trying to convey, that the Persians were taken by surprise because the Athenians were advancing much faster and going straight into that fight.
The Battle of Marathon, it's not as much as the battle, it's the report of it. God, I can't remember his name, but he ran 27 miles to report the victory. It's not as much as the battle itself. Yes, the battle itself is the Greeks were the underdog, but it's the marathon comes from the report of the battle. Yes, the battle was decisive, but the significance of the Battle of Marathon was the distance the messenger ran. If you eliminate the distance the messenger ran and just look at the battle itself, not as significant. Yeah, it was an upset, but not as much of an upset. You understand what I mean? The significance of the messenger running is the main focus of the Battle of Marathon. Yeah, the Battle of Marathon changed things, but that's not the historical significance.
Trying to convey is this idea that the Athenians won the Battle of Marathon through shock tactics. The Athenians didn't attack them while they were disembarking. They encamped across from them in this plain and sat looking at each other for 10 days.
This is like why I'm a hockey fan. You have a team that's coming in overconfident, and you have another team that has just suffered so many losses. This that's why I'm a hockey fan.
This is such a bizarre way of depicting Greek equipment. I mean, we know very well what kind of equipment they would have carried because they kept on depicting it on all of their art, and especially after this victory, they were very proud of depicting themselves the way they looked and depicting the Persians the way they had been defeated. They have little bossed shields, which are wrong. The swords are accurate. That sword that Themistocles is carrying looks like a very good Greek xiphos, but then they have double-headed axes.
He's got this here. That's a blood letter. You had that like kind of Coke bottle shape to a blade. When you stuck it into somebody, it allowed blood to flow. Later in medieval times, they have what that little ditch that runs up the center of the blade that's called a blood trough. You stick a blade in, you only have to hold it in there for 3 to 5 seconds, and you already dumped half a gallon of blood. I mean, that's basically what it is. When you have that bottle-shaped blade, that's a bloodletter. You stick that in there, and it just holds a fucking hole open so that a person dumps blood.
That Themistocles is carrying looks like a very good Greek xiphos, but then they have double-headed axes.
Yeah, you really... Axes weren't practical in combat until armor, like heavy armor, was introduced. Yeah. Swords and axes do totally different things. Axes break bones. They don't slice people open. They break bones. They shatter. They do massive damage. Swords just stab and slash. Axes, maces, they break bones. You get stabbed by a sword, you're going to die from bleeding. You get hit by an axe, you're going to die from internal bleeding. There's big differences on how the weapons are used. To tell you the truth, an axe would have been better in ancient Greece than a sword would have been.
Have all sorts of random weapons that have absolutely no place in classical Greece. Greeks are heavy spearmen, double grip shields, long spears, heavy armor. The Persians...
Yeah, you don't see axes and maces until medieval, when defense is graded. The offense has to upgrade.
seem to be carrying the khopesh, which is an Egyptian sword. The Egyptians were a big part of the Persian navy, so you might have had some Egyptian marines on board, may have carried these kinds of weapons. But, I mean, if we assume that this is a force of Persians, which the movie wants you to believe, then why are they carrying Egyptian weapons and not Persian ones? So the ancient battle account actually does say that they pursued the Persians to their ships and they seized some of the ships. So they have these really broad gangplanks, which, I mean, would have been really nice if they had those. I think that would have been make things a lot easier. But as far as we know, embarking and disembarking from these ships is actually quite difficult because they're just sort of either beached or lying just offshore. While this clip is working with sort of a kernel of what we're told about the Battle of Marathon.
Yeah, those Tremines are not docking ships. They're hitting beaches. They're beach landing. You're not going to have planks that lead to the ships.
Basically, everything you're seeing here is complete fantasy, so I would give it.
Actually, to tell you that, yeah, any ships that are hitting a beach, those Tremines, you're fighting on the beach. You're not fighting on ships.
One thing I'll give them, the kind of sheer scale of the violence happening in this battle, is something that the Greeks themselves were already kind of wanting to convey. Like they want us to know that this is a huge thing. Okay, him slapping the lances with his sword, right? Not only is that not historical, like that was made up by that guy right there for this scene. Like he just thought that would be a cool thing to do, so he did it, and that they kept it in the movie. And like, you know, it works so well that you almost want this to be a real thing. And people sometimes ask me, like, is that a real thing? Is that something that ancient
No,
medieval commanders would do?
no.
It's like, no, Bernard Hill did that, and now it's in this like incredible depiction of something that
No.
looks like pre-modern warfare. But that's just cinema. That's just in this movie. So cavalry charges usually would have been a lot slower than you see in movies, where in movies they spend a lot of time galloping. They're kind of going in at full speed into the enemy, and they do that for a long.
And there's no fucking way anywhere in history you had a cavalry charge that large. Even Metatron will say, no, that never happened. A cavalry charge that large never happened. A cavalry charge is usually from the flank, and I would say a 100 units, 100 soldiers. Yeah, that would be a large cavalry. Yeah, this is fucking ridiculous. That is just, yeah, this would never happen.
Time because it gives a sense of speed and drama, and it gets that nice hoofbeat sound. If they have to be tight, they have to be close together. And so in order to maintain that, you got to make sure that you don't go too fast too soon, because the horses will have different paces. So what they would actually do is they would approach slowly. Maybe they would break into a trot at some point. When they got near the enemy, they will break into a canter. But if they even gallop at all, that would only be like the last couple dozen meters. Some people will argue that the effect of a cavalry charge is...
And that pike thing they do it in Braveheart too, where they have the planet. That's minimal against a cavalry charge. You're basically cutting your cavalry charge in half, because you're only getting one horse with that spear. You might even be only getting one horse with two spears. But yeah, that a cavalry charge is going to fuck up foot infantry in any situation. There's very minimal defense you have against one.
Purely psychological, so you'd never actually crash into a prepared enemy. You would always kind of be riding through an enemy that's already broken and running away. So you kind of...
Yeah, well, he's talking about you're charging your cavalry through a broken line. To tell you the truth, any tactician will tell you you're going to want to use a cavalry on a flank.
Just slapping them in the back while they've already been driven off. But the other theory is actually that horses can be trained to crash into a solid object. This idea that you see in this scene of them throwing bodies, There's a testimony by, I think, Winston Churchill, actually, from Omdurman, where he describes this happening, that the infantry was literally just bodied by these horses, and that's what would happen when the cavalry slams into them. I think the movie is trying to signal this idea. It's like, we know that it's going to be very difficult. We know not everyone believes that cavalry can charge into a prepared position and carry it. So we're kind of trying to anticipate that by saying, look, these orcs were already wavering. And so when they start wavering and opening up gaps and lifting their weapons, that's when cavalry has the opportunity to overrun them.
Well, that's just common sense. If any defense is going to waver, it's weakened. You could stop a line of elephants if you don't waver. That's how you have to approach the situation. No, you can't stop a fucking advancement of elephants, but if you think you can, that's your best chances of doing it. That's the point.
Oliphants are basically just a sort of souped up fantasy version of the war elephant. In ancient times, when they were first introduced, they were very effective because any army that hadn't seen these animals before was going to be absolutely terrified. So
yeah, elephants were a psychological warfare. That's basically it. If you're going to hype up war elephants as an ancient tank, no, not really. They were more psychological warfare. Elephants were no more. They were no more tougher than a moose. Anything else, it's an animal you got to take down.
What you often see infantry do when elephants charge them is just make space, just make canals, make pathways through the formation, just get out of the way. And the elephants will prefer not to be fighting you and rather just be running on. That's what the Romans eventually figured out they should do against Carthaginian elephants, for instance. In this case, I think they're too close together, so it's going to be really difficult to create those channels. The other option is essentially to overwhelm them with missiles, using light infantry, using archers and other kind of skirmishers to try and build a screen against elephants is usually very effective. He's throwing his lance at the rider who's controlling the Oliphant. Which is, I mean, I guess it's a way to try and disable them. But the problem that you're facing really isn't the fact that there's a driver controlling the elephant. The problem is that you've got an elephant coming at you. And so really what you want to do is get that animal to either move past you harmlessly or turn away. In terms of...
I'm not going to criticize him too much right here because he's confusing the elephants with elephants. These are, oh God, at least 3 times the size of an elephant. These are not your circus fucking beasts. These are war animals. So, you're going to have to take what he's saying with a grain of salt. He's comparing it to what we have available other than what is in the fantasy world. So I can't wreck him too much on this, but I don't agree with him any.
Cinema, in terms of emotion, this is the best scene. This is the best kind of ancient warfare scene that you could possibly imagine. Return of the King is always going to be awesome out of 10. If you wanted me to put a number on this, it's very difficult to say because it's fantasy, but I'd probably give it an 8.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to take everything back about what I said to him. That fucking 8 he laid onto it was totally fair.
This scene is portraying the siege of Kerak. The Muslim army, they would often try to isolate Crusader knights, trying to get around them and then sort of encircle them, attack them from all sides. That seems to be fairly accurate. But at the same time, I mean, they would do that in conjunction with horse archers and other missile troops that they would use to try and soften that formation up first. There should absolutely be arrows flying everywhere, and most of these Frankish knights should probably be dead before they even make it to combat. It's also especially weird to see that the Frankish knights decide to split up. I mean, that's absolute madness. I mean, that's guaranteeing your own defeat. They should have stuck together as close as they could. They should have made a strong column and driven it straight into the Muslim force. That's the only chance they have of...
I have to agree with that. They should have. If you look back at it, they totally should have spearheaded that advance. If they were going to split off, they should have split off dramatically and made curled off, and they're outnumbered. They have to spearhead. You have to penetrate the enemy line. That's in this kind of battle. That's the only choice you have to do. You have is to penetrate the enemy line and cause chaos behind their ranks. That's the only chance you have. Like, look how outnumbered they are. I mean, they are completely outnumbered. Your only chance is to disrupt the line and cause chaos behind
absolute madness.
the fucking
I mean,
ranks.
that's guaranteeing your own defeat. They should have stuck together as close as they could. They should have made a strong column and driven it straight into the Muslim...
Well, that's what he's talking about. He's talking about spearheading it, or they could have made two spearheads, which is what I probably would have done just by looking at what they were already doing. You have one spearhead right here. You have another spearhead right here.
Made a strong column and driven it straight into the Muslim force.
I mean, you could argue which is you could argue which is a better strategy, but both of them are solid strategies.
Of medieval heavy cavalry, like medieval European cavalry, are very much based on the idea that they are a heavy shock force. They're meant to trample the enemy. I feel like that Ridley Scott clearly put a lot of effort into training his horsemen to allow him to do this kind of maneuvering, and he wanted to show it on screen. It looks great, but tactically, it's nonsense. Like
Crusaders were overrunners. When people talk about Teutonic Knights, the Crusaders, they weren't good one-on-one fighters. They were good at operating in a group. They were good tacticians. They were not good fighters.
They would never have fought like this, and it has absolutely no chance of achieving anything. The advantage of a lance is that it can be couched when you're charging, when you're using it on horseback. So you can actually put that lance somewhere under your arm where it's stable, where it's braced by the rest of your body and by the horse, so that you can then maintain a direct line into combat and put the full weight of your horse and your person and your weapon behind that point. I think he should have been overhand, like that gives you the range, but I would give it a 4. This scene is a nonsense, but the movie tells the story, right?
Why the fuck you would go into battle with a lance? A lance is a one-time weapon. It's like I'm going into battle with one grenade. It's fucking stupid.
Normally in battle...
That is seriously.
Scene is a nonsense, but the movie tells the story, right?
This is exactly how combat in ancient times would have happened.
Normally in battles like these, when Roman infantry is fighting, you'd want to see them use their throwing spears, which they had to kind of disrupt enemy formations. And so in
Yeah, that is a thing. You didn't see the pilums fly, but this is, yeah, that's up until medieval times. This is how,
theory, you should want to see these
yeah,
two
that's
lines
how they
exchanging
met.
these volleys of javelins before they actually get into hand-to-hand combat. But we're told that specifically at Philippi, they didn't do this. It was really quite a battle of butchers, essentially. They went straight into close combat and just hacked at each other with swords until there was no one left standing. You see them marching into battle in these orderly blocks, in these orderly units. That is very much how a Roman legion would advance. The problem with this scene is that, like, on the surface, that looks great and I'm happy with it, but then it's suddenly devolved into this Hollywood mob brawl. That is not a realistic battlefield. Those units would try to maintain their formation as...
No, I don't know. He's talking about it falling into a Hollywood mob brawl. He's not showing that.
long as possible, and if you lose your formation, you run away, you instantly break, you get the hell out of there because you want to restore order before you fight.
Yeah. At this time, battle was very orderly. If things weren't happening the way you wanted them to happen, you would definitely retreat. The whole assess and adapt that Alexander the Great had, he that's the key to these battles. You have to assess and adapt. If you can't do that, you've lost the battle. You either dominate or you lose. Like this is chaos. Here, there's no ordered line.
And the other thing that they do that really annoys me, these guys who are squeezing their way to the back and then the next rank comes forward and they're literally holding onto the straps on each other's equipment to try and make sure that that formation maintains that same order and that the guys are all sort of slotting in where they're supposed to be. This is a really unhistorical way to depict what a Roman army would actually do, which is not rank rotation, but line rotations. What these Roman armies were equipped to do was...
Yeah, they were packed in there like fucking stink on a monkey, man.
To take the entire unit, including its front rank and all the other ranks, out of the line and replace it with another unit that was coming up from behind. They would have a line rotation system, usually in 3 lines, that would take turns bearing the brunt of the fighting. But within those lines, within those units...
Alright, from what I understand, it's been 2 lines. He's introducing a 3-line system. I'm going to have to back up and relook at.
Including its front rank and all the other ranks, out of the line and replace it with another unit that was coming up from behind. They would have a line rotation system, usually in 3 lines, that would take turns bearing the brunt of the fighting. But within those lines, within those units, the front rank had to remain the front rank. It was absolutely instrumental to the functioning of an ancient infantry formation. I hold a grudge against...
Alright, that same battle tactic was used by the British in the American Revolution. Yeah, if you look at this...
all the other ranks out of the line and replace it with another unit that was coming up from behind. They would have a line rotation system, usually in 3 lines, that would take turns bearing the brunt of the fighting. But within those lines, within those units, the front rank had to remain the front rank. It was absolutely instrumental to the functioning of an ancient infantry formation. I hold a grudge against...
Okay, it's not exactly, but it's very similar to the way the British fought the American Revolution.
Against them for using that stupid whistle. It bothers me. So I'm going to have to mark them down for it. But the equipment in this show is really the best that you've seen Romans. Like this is really quite authentic for the late Republic. The mail armor, the simple helmets, the big shields that they're carrying. So I guess I give it a 5.
To tell you the truth, I would probably give it a 6 or a 7 for the tactics. I mean, I understand he's going for the historical realism. I'm gonna say that yeah, that's more of tactics. I would give it a little bit higher.
It's a common tactic is to try and find one position that they're not paying attention to or that hasn't been reinforced to the same degree, sneaking in there with a small force. Alexander the Great did it a few times. He would just offer rewards for the first person to make it up a particularly difficult slope or something like that, in order to overcome the defenses of a particularly strong position. I have no idea how you would be able to shoot a bolt with a crossbow that would dig so deep into a stone wall that you could hang a man from it. That seems wild.
Yeah, that is a common Hollywood trope that just needs to end. Yeah, yeah, that's just wrong.
I'm very impressed with that crossbow. I want that technology. I'm surprised they haven't used a ladder to climb the wall instead of doing this sort of really elaborate thing. By far the most common way for cities to fall was through treachery. So you'd almost always either have someone sneak in and open the gates, or you'd have someone on the inside open the gates for you. When you read ancient treatises like Aeneas Tacticus, the vast bulk of that work is devoted to how do you keep people from giving away the password, sewing through the crossbar of the gate. How do you keep people from sending signals to people outside, you know, the besieging force? So that kind of factor is much more important in the defense of an ancient city than the technicalities of what kind of weapons you might use to defend it, at least in the minds of ancient authors. Give it a 6. He's infiltrating the wall in a really bizarre way. That doesn't make sense. But then fundamentally the idea of opening up a gate from the inside so that friendly forces can approach the city and enter, like, that's obviously very realistic.
Well, what I'm gonna keep with this 6. But penetrating a wall for a city, that's something you're going to try to do sub-military. You're going to be outside that wall, building your trebuchets, organizing your units, but you're going to be hiring sappers, rogues, to try to get over that wall or under that wall. They're going to try to sneak into the city. He's always on the. I'm not knocking him. I'm just saying. I'm a general trying to do this. This is how I'm going to do this. He's not. He's looking at the fair play of combat, not the underhanded shit. So, yeah, I'm gonna stick with his 6, but I don't think he's looking at it from all perspectives.
This scene depicts the siege of Sanyang. You also see this arms race between attackers and defenders in terms of siege equipment that they're trying to use. The Mongols tried to bring up their original trebuchets, which are essentially man-powered, which have a limited range, to try and bring down the walls. Song defenders realized that this would make the defense a short story, so they dug a moat that was wide enough that it was impossible to push those trebuchets close enough to the wall to actually do any damage. As always, the ditch is not there, so you can't actually see that in the show.
More counterweight, Talib. Any more weight there?
Dude loves his ditches.
More counterweight.
Why are they on fire? Why Marco Polo tells us that he participated in this siege and that he actually explained the use of counterweight catapults or counterweight trebuchets to the Mongols. But he seems to be inflating his own role in that. It was these Iraqi Muslim engineers that showed them how to build a counterweight catapult, or counterweight trebuchet, which works on the power of gravity with a very large counterweight in order to swing the beam around a fulcrum and throw an object a far greater distance than older forms of siege artillery. What they're arguing here.
Well, the thing about a trebuchet is its accuracy. It's not as much as how much it could throw. It could throw the same amount of weight in the exact same spot. This is the importance of it as a siege engine. Yeah, you're hitting the main gate over and over again, but your enemy knows where you're going to attack. Yeah, the trebuchet is a powerful weapon, but it's not a fucking ace up the sleeve.
That you need to put on more weight to increase the range. That's exactly right. I mean, that is how they work fundamentally. You just need to have engineered a structure that can take the power of that sudden swing without losing control of the beam and the missile. Why would you do that? The Mongols had a real problem when they were engaging fortified positions, which is that they specialized in mounted warfare. They could defeat anyone in the open. They had the arms to do that.
The Mongols were a fucking hit and retreat. Their mobile archers were their main fucking asset.
But they struggled with, siege assaults where you need a lot of infantry to overcome fortifications. But in this particular fight scene, you're actually seeing Song soldiers outside of the walls. They're caught in the open. So this is where the Mongol advantage would come into effect. They should absolutely remain on horseback.
100%. 100%. A fucking bitch boy is 100% correct on this.
And fight them on horseback, because at that point, scattered infantry is absolutely, unable to defend itself. These are some of the earliest gunpowder weapons in existence. At this point, they don't really...
And they were shit. They were shit. Everybody looks, oh, gunpowder, this is an advantage. No, they were shit. A fucking good archer was better than a fucking gunslinger in those days.
They exist yet in Europe. But they really are just this. They're essentially a tube on a stick. So they look quite bulky and it's difficult to hold them, and you kind of need a second person to show up and actually ignite the fuse. I would give this a 3. The Battle of the...
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Yeah, the gunpowder showing up on the battlefield in the first infancy of it, yeah, gunpowder was garbage. It was a fucking fad.
The Siege of Sanyang.
I would I'd give it a 4 for its historical significance. But yeah, as far as a tactical significance, I'm gonna go with the 3 out of 10.
Is a really important moment in history, and so it's nice that there is some depiction of.
But the simple fact that it jumped off from here, that's what I'm talking about. Like 3 out of 10. Yeah, dude, if I would have been there at the time and I would have saw the performance of those guns, I would, yeah, definitely 3 out of 10. But the significance of it, you're going to have to at least bump it up to a 4 out of 10.
of that. My favorite battle scene that I watched today is the Battle of Pelennor Fields from Lord of the Rings. Not even necessarily because it's that accurate, it's just the scene that really gets a rise out of me. I'm watching it now and I still get goosebumps. I just love it. There are some times when you don't necessarily need a scene to be accurate, but it also does hit a lot of notes. It gets a lot of things right. So I really think that's a golden combination.
All right, I'm really interested.
If you like this video, why not click on the next one?
Oh. You gotta fuck off. How about that?
So boiling oil didn't happen. Sorry. I mean, you can just throw boiling water. Hi, my name is Roko Nijendijk. I'm a lecturer in ancient history at the University of Oxford. I'm an expert in ancient warfare.
Well, here's the thing about boiling oil. When you start boiling oil, its ignition point reduces. So let's say you have a vat full of bacon grease, and you boil that, and then you ignite it on fire. That is definitely, yeah, that's definitely better than boiling water. You dump boiling water from the top of a castle wall, that water is going to cool on the way down. You dump flaming bacon grease from the top of a castle wall, it's going to be on fire until it hits the ground. So, yeah, right there,
And I'm here
he's
to talk
talking
to you today
shit.
about pre-modern warfare in modern movies. So this is the
Yeah, the phalanx would not repel a charging troop like that.
supposed Greek concept of othismos, which it literally means pushing. And about 100 years ago, a scholar in Oxford who clearly had rugby on his mind decided that this should be conceived as a literal mass shoving. We have no evidence of that. Nobody ever says that that's the case. But for some reason, this really caught on. And so for the last 100 years, it's been controversial. But generally speaking, I mean, people didn't want to fight like that. Spears are right in your face. So there's a lot of reasons to want to avoid this. So this moment where they switch from fighting in formation to going after individuals who are still resisting, that seemed very realistic for most of these fights. Make sure you can kill as many of them as possible, because that's when they're vulnerable. That's when they're not fighting back. So that's when you can just sort of spear them in the back. And that's exactly what happens in this scene. It's only very much later in...
Well, this is just the concept of breaking a line. Everything from the Battle of Thermopylae all the way up to the Battle of the Bulge is the Battle of the Bulge. The whole concept behind the Battle of the Bulge was breaking a line. It's the most fundamental concept of military aggression is breaking a line.
Spartan history, where they say we don't chase the fleeing enemy, because if you chase the enemy, then you're caught out of formation, you become vulnerable. But at this time, in the time of the Persian Wars, the Spartans had no rules against this, and indeed, it's a true story. You can't really dispute that. But in sense of the tactics and the weapons, it feels like a fantasy movie. Maybe 3 or 4 out of 10. If the old man's in range, why isn't everybody shooting? They're making...
Exactly. If the fucking army is in range, why are you going to sit there and wait for your army to come right up to the wall?
All these people on the walls hold their arrow for a really long time, and these are really heavy bows, so it's exhausting. And armor is intended to keep arrows out. Bows aren't guns. They are meant as a suppressive weapon. You use it to keep their heads down. And so, of course, you would still use it even against people wearing.
This is the thing that I always said when I used to play Call of Duty. Machine guns are suppressive weapons. You don't kill people with a machine gun. You keep people's heads down with a machine gun. You kill people with semi-automatic rifles.
Plate armor, because even the feel of arrows sort of pinging off your armor or falling around.
This is why Gen Z will lose wars. They don't understand how wars are fought.
Around you is going to make you much more cautious and hesitant. Obviously, attacking walls with ladders is just a really, really risky proposition and usually doesn't work. If you believe they don't have either the courage or the strength to resist you, then you might try this. You just put a lot of ladders against the walls, swarm up, take the place. If you expect it to be defended, it puts you in such a position of vulnerability, approaching the walls one at a time, and it's just not going to go well. But obviously, it is a very common tactic. I mean, you can go to the British Museum right now and see.
It is a common tactic, but usually they will focus an attack in a position, usually a gate, and then they come up with ladders on the side. Ladders are never a direct attack. It's always a flank.
Depictions of people assaulting walls with ladders. Yeah, so I mean, the problem when you see this kind of siege scenes in movies is that they always seem to make it really easy for the attacker. If they want to go right up to the wall, they can just do that. If they want to bring siege engines, if they want to bring catapults or rams or towers up to the walls, they can just do that. It's like they're trying to make it possible for this place to fall. Whereas in reality, I mean, one of the most common forms of fortification is very simply, if you have the ground like this, you dig a ditch and you pile up.
Yeah, this is the kind of shit I always want to talk about the Metatron. Well, see, he's doing a lot of political shit. But I liked his historical shit because
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. And of course, here's your meme of the day, brought to you by 5mind.com. You know, it feels like the theme of the year has been nothing but scams, rackets, and fraud. Ever since the Doge initiative and frankly the Trump mandate started on the 20th of January this year, it's been nothing but bombshell after bombshell of Democrat fraud, massive NGO scams, the list goes on and on and on. And some people, you know, they seem surprised. Oh, it's shocking, especially the scale of some of these massive fraud schemes. We're talking billions of frickin' dollars. It's certainly not a petty crime like stealing out of a tip jar. No, we're talking big institutional levels of fraud. And of course, for so many people, it's shocking.
And the thing is, fucking this guy, this right winger, is just jerking off about this, and nothing is going to amount from it. That's what I fucking hate about this. We're literally looking at fucking fraud right in the face, and nothing is being done about it.
But for me, and I think for many of us, it's the least shocking thing we've heard all year. Democrat governance and massive fraud go together like peanut butter and frickin' jelly.
And we're not gonna do a goddamn thing about it.
Obviously, there's a pattern here. Every time you get one of these bloated blue state bureaucracies, well, all you gotta do is simply scratch the surface a little bit, and you get a full-on window into waste, fraud, and abuse.
And we're not gonna do a goddamn thing about it.
Bureaucratic bloat skimming off the top, money laundering, embezzlement. And yet, seriously, in 2025, we got people looking at this stuff going, oh, well, who would have known? No.
And we're not gonna do a goddamn thing about it.
Oh, it could have happened anywhere. But the truth is, no, it couldn't. This only happens in big, bloated, public bureaucracies. It's the worst environment for corruption. And once again, we're getting a glimpse into that corruption, as it seems we now have a Minnesota DHS whistleblower, or alleged whistleblower. He's claiming to be a whistleblower. And this individual is pointing the finger directly at Tim Walz' fat frickin' face. Let me show you guys this very interesting
And we're not gonna do a goddamn thing about it. Literally, this shit is served up to you on a silver platter, and you're not gonna do a goddamn thing about it.
Development. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so we've supposedly got this new statement coming from inside Tim Walz' Minnesota machine. We have the official Minnesota DHS account, which is Minnesota DHS, but then there's another handle that popped up recently, which is Minnesota_DHS, and this account is apparently...
Oh, hey, you want cheese on top of that? Because we're not going to do a goddamn thing about it.
Currently, a whistleblower from inside the department who created it. The account has since been suspended, so again, I really don't know the validity of the account, but we got many outlets reporting on this, as this post went viral all over social media. Quote, Tim Walz is 100% responsible for massive fraud in Minnesota.
Hey, you want extra fries with that? Because we're not going to do a goddamn thing about that.
Tim Walz know of fraud early on, hoping for a partnership in stopping fraud, but no, we got the opposite response. Tim Walz systematically retaliated against whistleblowers using monitoring, threats, repression, and did his best to discredit fraud reports. Instead of partnership, we got the full weight of retaliation by Tim Walz, certain DFL members, and in different mainstream media. It's scary, isolating, and left us wondering who we can turn to. In addition to retaliating against whistleblowers,
Hey, you want cheese on top of that? Because we don't give a goddamn shit about it.
Walz disempowered the Office of the Legislative Auditor, allowing agencies to disregard their audit findings and guidance. Media and politicians supporting Tim Walz or the DFL agenda attacked whistleblowers who were trying to raise red flags on fraudulent activities. This is a cascade of...
I seriously hate the world we live in.
If I may have a moment of your time. In the last few days during this whole mass demonetization ordeal that I've experienced on my channel, I received a lot of very nice comments, but I've also got some very hateful remarks. Yes, finally, go get a real job. What you do is not work, it's a hobby anyways. I'd like to respond using logic and reason. Let's take someone who spends 5 hours a day researching every morning. Does he have a job? Of course he's a researcher. Someone who edits videos for many hours every day? Of course that's
to take part in the arts, including both acting and music. Like many actors, Jared began his career by moving to LA and landing minor roles for a couple of years until he got his big break. The 1994 TV show My So-Called Life, in which he played the love interest of the main protagonist. Naturally, due to the success of the show among teenage girls, Jared was quickly typecast as a male love interest. But he had something different in mind, as within just a few years of his big break, he appeared in movies like American Psycho as none other than Paul Allen from probably the most iconic scene in the entire movie. And you may also remember him from Fight Club, where he plays a character named Angel Face. In the movie, he's juxtaposed in the story to be good looking, only for the protagonist to hideously deform him in a fight. Lastly, we have the movie Requiem for a Dream, a psychological drama where Jared plays a guy whose life is being destroyed by his heroin addiction. Based solely on the kind of roles he favored over the pretty boy image he started his career out with, you can gauge that he wasn't exactly satisfied in starring in random rom-coms.
This is freaking hilarious. So Hassan is like walking down the street and a viewer comes up to him and is like, "Oh dude, can I get a pic with you, bro? I love your content." But it turns out that viewer actually doesn't like Hassan at all and turns it into like a free Kaya moment.
Yeah. I don't have my phone with me. Can we just
Alright,
do
team
pic?
photo?
Here. Yeah. Hey, free Kaya. Free Kaya.
Jesus.
Fuck that guy.
Nuts. I'm a bit blown away that people are coming out to say hello to you.
Well, a bit blown away that people are coming out and say that you shook your dog.
Oh my gosh, what? The guy at the end, like, no hate to that dude. I don't know who that guy is, but he clearly doesn't understand what happened there. That just made it so much funnier, dude. It was already hilarious. And I've seen that clip a few times already. That's why I'm not laughing more right now, because I already freaking laughed a lot at that. But, like, I didn't actually catch that. I didn't watch the full thing before. That's the first time I saw, like, that dude at the end and his response, thinking, like, that was an actual fan. He's like, "Oh, it's so wonderful, dude. People recognize you. It's so great." Meanwhile, the dude was actually, like, throwing shade and mocking him. Now, a little secret inside info. That part of the video that you just saw was originally the latter part of the video, coming up after the next part that you're about to see. But I decided to reverse it because that clip was so funny. I wanted to not wait. I wanted to show you that right away. But yeah, the rest of this will be briefly regarding the H3 Casey-tron lawsuit, which I'll explain a bit moving forward, and how this negatively impacts Hassan as he got called out directly in an apology of sorts. Again, we'll get to the context right now, but I just mentioned this all to say that if this video feels a little disjointed moving forward, that's why, because I chopped it up and reversed it.
Hey, you called me
I think
earlier?
it'll be
What's
fine.
up?
All right, with that context, here is the rest of the video. So it looks like one of Hassan's biggest yes men, one of Hassan's biggest
nothing.
blazers, is this
I've
Twitter
just been
influencer named
working on my
Casey-tron,
shit,
who recently
trying to
was
get
being sued by H3 over a copyright
things
dispute, to my
going.
understanding.
Did you
And
need
it looks like
something?
she just decided, or they just decided to settle out of court.
Oh.
But with Casey-tron being on the losing end of that settlement. Now, to be quite frank, I don't follow H3 or Casey-tron, but to my understanding, like H3 and Hassan have beef or something, so I guess that's part of why Hassan was wanting to defend Casey-tron, who's this yes man of his, against
you called me.
H3. Problem is, I guess Hassan didn't really pull through. He made some hollow promises to Casey about how he would help her with the lawsuit.
Alright, then,
and then
I'll talk to you later.
well, unfortunately for her, it looks like that didn't actually happen, because part of the settlement included her making a apology of sorts publicly. Now, this, of course, was ultimately most likely written by H3 and his legal counsel, and then she was forced to say that of Hassan, making the implication that he would, as mentioned, help Casey out in this lawsuit.
Oh, socialist, why won't he give these guys money? Trust me, if I offer support, you won't know about it, okay?
But now we have this statement from Casey-tron, as mentioned, part of the settlement, part of her apology that she was forced to make, and it's not looking good for bro over there.
I also want to make clear that I did not receive any support, financial or otherwise, from Hassan Piker. Hassan never even reached out to me privately to offer words of support. Speaking honestly, I found his indifference to my suffering hurtful, especially after he hinted he might help me behind the scenes. It felt like he wanted to receive credit from the public for him helping me without providing any.
Now, to my understanding, even if she's being forced to say what H3 and his legal counsel wrote up for this apology, they still can't force her to say something that's a lie. So obviously, Hassan's not going to be happy about her having to admit this. But I wonder how she feels about it. I wonder if she's still like a Hassan glazer after all this stuff, or I wonder if she actually does feel betrayed and she now like hates Hassan or something because he didn't actually help her out like he was making it sound like he would. And the last thing I want to say about that clip really quick is where I'm paraphrasing this now, but she said something like,
You're safe behind your shields, and the orcs are going to impale themselves on your pointy sticks. And then the elves just decide, no, instead we'll jump in front of that and put ourselves needlessly into danger. My name is Roel Konijnendijk. I teach ancient history at the University of Edinburgh. You might remember me from part 1. Today we'll be looking at ancient warfare scenes in modern movies and TV and seeing how real they are. All these movies do this. They will have these archers lined up. They give these sequence of knock, draw, loose over and over again. But this never happened. You don't order them to shoot in volleys. When you order everyone to draw at the same time, some of these guys are going to get really tired, and they're not...
No, like I said this before. You're going to give the order to fire to your archers. The first one will probably be a volley, and then after that, it's just random arrow fire.
Not going to be effective. Others are going to be like, this is too slow for me. I can shoot faster than this. There were no orders to archers to fire in volleys. The coordination required to do this is completely impossible. There were battle formations where you would have shield walls in front and then spears sticking out to sort of drive the enemy back. Obviously, the Macedonian pikemen are the big famous example. There are Mesopotamian examples from like way back 2000 BC. It wouldn't work like this though. You couldn't really form them in a circle. They would form up in blocks and they would maneuver in blocks, and that's hard enough. Once you're fully surrounded, I mean, there's nothing you can do, really. You're in big trouble. You can try to break the spears. The Persians are known to do that against the Greeks. Their spears are longer, so they literally went up and snapped them in half by hand. But that's a desperation move, and it doesn't really get you anywhere. If you're in an encirclement like that of a proper pike formation, then you're just doomed. You probably surrender. Crushes in battle do happen, but most of the time, when people do get crushed into a small space and the dead start piling up, it's because they're trying to run away and they can't escape because there's a river or a ravine or a wall and they get stuck there. The panic of a trample, they do depict that very well. When horses turn up unexpectedly, especially behind the infantry line, you would give up and run. There is almost no chance that that formation would hold. The very unrealistic thing in this scene is that no one knew that cavalry was there. It's possible to hide, small units in woods or hollow roads or behind some geographical feature. But a large force of cavalry is going to throw up a lot of dust, it's going to make a lot of noise, it's going to, scare the birds and the animals. You know this is nonsense, but it does give a sense of desperation of some of these struggles. So maybe 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10. That big horn is supposed to be like a morale boost, and in that sense it can work. A lot of troops before battle would try to sing songs together, just like sports teams might do, to hype them up. So that kind of thing would work for a horn. That shouldn't be confused with the idea of using it to give orders. That's a separate thing. The Romans were very good at that. They had a number of different trumpet signals, and the troops all knew, if you hear this signal, if you hear that signal, you have to do different things. But for instance, the Greeks, they had one big trumpet. When it sounded, you charge. If it sounds again, you retreat. That's it. Why would you do that? Why would they try to get the cavalry to slide over the shield wall into their own formation? You want the cavalry to stop in front of you, because at the moment that cavalry stops and is stuck in front of your spear wall, they lose all their advantages. They're not mobile anymore. They don't have that momentum anymore. The elves clearly have a very effective spear wall, and then they just duck under it and let the cavalry slide over it. What? I don't know why. I don't know what they were doing. Both the elves and the dwarves in this one have this double-layered shield wall. There are battle formations where you would do that, where you would try to stop cavalry by building these double-layered shield walls. This is based on a late Roman infantry formation where you put your infantry close together at the front in double shield wall or even triple shield wall. But in most battles, it's such a static formation, it removes all your opportunities to maneuver or to move. You wouldn't want to do that unless you were absolutely sure what the enemy was going to do was going to be running straight into you. If there was anything else they might do, you want to keep your flexibility by keeping your lines separated and just rely on a single wall of shields, because that will do most of the time. If you've got a static defense, you have your spear wall, The orcs are charging straight into it with no sense of self-preservation. That's exactly what you want them to do, right? You're safe behind your shields, and the orcs are going to impale themselves on your pointy sticks. All you want to have is for that to be exactly like that until the orcs stop coming. And then the elves just decide, no, instead we'll jump in front of that and put ourselves needlessly into danger so we can fight these orcs hand to hand. It makes no sense. It serves no purpose. Wedge formations are debated because on the one hand we have a lot of sources saying that wedge formations existed mainly for cavalry, but it's not entirely certain how that would even work, because most of what you're doing is just putting one guy at the front who's going to be exposed to everyone in the enemy line. So unless you've already made a hole, that wedge is not going to give you any advantage. It's just actually going to put you in a really dangerous position where you're feeding your men one at a time into the enemy. With cavalry, it's not clear whether it even works. It's showing you some interesting heavy infantry formations, but otherwise like 4 out of 10. So this is Kubrick trying to visualize a real Roman battle formation, which is this 3 lines in a checkerboard, which going into battle they would actually try and form some kind of line. We're not actually sure how this worked. It's also possible that they actually fought in these checkerboards, which would give them room to sort of withdraw between the ranks of the others and sort of maneuver in and out. When the front was getting tired, or when it was suffering too many casualties, and when it couldn't get through, you just pull them back and send in the second line, which would consist of more experienced troops. And then they would have a go. This is just an enormous mob of guys, much too deep to serve any purpose. Like, get information! Oh no, it landed on him! Like, it bounced over the one and landed on the other guy. Oh, I hope he got his paycheck. Killed by a massive flaming corn dog. Excellent work. Hollywood just likes fire. They just want to have fire in their battles. They want to throw big balls of fire, and they want to have rollers of fire and balls of fire to disrupt formations. It seems to work in theory because you want these orderly formations disrupted. In that sense, it makes tactical sense. The casualty rate of these battles in Hollywood is ridiculous. The result is always that everyone dies. This is just not how battles work. You have a certain number of men in a formation, and when they start to see that things are going against them, or especially when they realize they've lost order, they're going to retreat. They're going to get out of there, and then they'll see what happens next. Or if the enemy is running away and they're being chased by cavalry, that's when you see the real casualties pile up. But in these formation battles, most of the time casualties would be quite low, 6 out of 10 for trying. It must have been an enormous effort to try and get all these extras trained to do this. And then they get rolled over by flaming corn dogs. It's a missed opportunity. That poor guy, I hope he's well. I hope he's still around.
The ranks! The ranks! I kill you myself!